There's something irresistible about haunted places. The whispers of the past, the shadows that linger, the stories of tragedies they call to us, daring the brave to step inside. But some stories are more than cautionary tales. Some are terrifyingly real. Across the United States, countless people have vanished after visiting haunted locations, leaving behind only questions, rumors, and the lingering chill of the unknown. Tonight, we explore 25 true stories of people who disappeared after visiting haunted places, where the veil between the living and the dead may be thinner than we imagine. Some vanished in mansions, some on desolate roads, and some in forests where the trees whisper secrets to the wind. These are the chilling tales of the curious who were never seen again. Myrtle's plantation, nestled in the heart of Louisiana, has long been shrouded in stories of tragedy and supernatural activity, often referred to as one of the most haunted locations in the United States. The mansion's history is riddled with deaths, misfortune, and tales of restless spirits lingering within its walls. Visitors are drawn to its storied past, eager to witness firsthand the mysteries that have made it infamous. Among the many ghostly accounts, the disappearance of a tourist during a night tour stands out as both chilling and mysterious, raising questions about the plantation's otherworldly presence and the dangers that may lurk within. The incident occurred during a full moon evening, when the mansion was illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns and flashlights. A group of tourists had gathered for one of the plantation's night tours, guided by a local historian who recounted tales of former owners, tragic deaths, and the many spirits said to inhabit the property. Among the group was a young visitor who expressed particular interest in the stories, keen on photographing and exploring the shadowed halls. The tour moved slowly, passing through grand rooms adorned with antique furniture, portraits of past residents, and the eerie silence that seemed to hang in every corner. As the group progressed, the young tourist lagged slightly behind, captivated by a corridor said to be the most haunted part of the mansion. Witnesses reported seeing them pause, staring intently into the dimly lit hallway that led to the upper floors. Moments later, they stepped into the shadowed passage and disappeared from sight. At first, the guides assumed the tourist had simply moved ahead, but calls and questions went unanswered. Other visitors reported feeling a sudden chill, a weight in the air, and a growing sense of unease. The faint sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway, yet no one else was present to produce them. Attempts to locate the missing tourist immediately intensified. Guides and staff searched every room and hallway, retracing steps and calling their name, but the figure had vanished completely. Security cameras installed in the mansion later showed a fleeting image of a silhouette entering the darkened corridor, but the figure never re-emerged. The video captured nothing more than the empty hallway, devoid of sound or movement, leaving the disappearance unexplained. The incident sent shockwaves through the staff and visitors, amplifying the plantation's reputation for paranormal activity and sinister energy. Paranormal investigators who examined the site after the disappearance reported a number of unusual phenomena consistent with the plantation's haunted history. Cold spots were detected along the corridor where the tourist vanished, sudden temperature drops that could not be explained by drafts or ventilation. EMF readings spiked unpredictably, and audio devices captured faint whispers that seemed to call out unintelligible words or plea-like cries. Some investigators suggested that these disturbances were the result of residual energy, echoes of past tragedies that had imprinted upon the mansion's walls. Others proposed a more unsettling theory that active spirits, those with unfinished business or lingering anger, may have played a role in the tourist's disappearance. The Myrtle's plantation has a history filled with sorrow, including deaths by disease, accidents, and rumored murders. One of the most famous stories involves a former slave named Chloe, who is said to haunt the property after her own tragic demise. Chloe's ghost has been linked to numerous accounts of apparitions, moving objects, and chilling sounds, reinforcing the idea that spirits of the plantation are both present and powerful. Paranormal experts suggest that the disappearance of the tourist could be an extension of this pattern, a modern encounter with forces that have lingered for centuries. Witnesses from the tour consistently describe a sudden, oppressive feeling that overcame the group at the moment of the disappearance. Some reported the air growing thick and heavy, the sensation of being watched, and an unexplained fear that compelled them to remain in place. Others claimed they saw fleeting shadows flit across walls or glimpsed figures in the corners of their vision, vanishing when attention was turned directly toward them. These accounts, coupled with the inexplicable vanishing, have led many to believe that the mansion itself can trap those who enter, especially those who wander too far into the areas where spirits are most active. Local authorities and the plantation's management took the disappearance seriously, conducting thorough searches of the surrounding grounds and nearby areas, yet no trace of the tourist was ever found. The case remains open, a chilling reminder of the mansion's unpredictable nature. For investigators and paranormal enthusiasts, it represents one of the most compelling and unnerving examples of Myrtle's Plantation's haunted reputation, a place where history, tragedy, and supernatural forces seem to converge, leaving no easy explanation for those who vanish within its walls. For visitors today, the story of the vanishing tourist serves as both a warning and a lure. Tourists are cautioned to remain close to guides and avoid wandering alone, particularly along the upper hallways and shadowed corridors that have long been associated with ghostly activity. Yet, despite or perhaps because of the danger, thrill seekers continue to visit, hoping to witness the unexplained firsthand. Some claim to feel a presence brushing past them, to hear whispers calling from empty rooms, or to see fleeting shadows darting in corners. Moments that echo the terrifying disappearance of the tourist years before. The vanishing tourist at Myrtle's Plantation has become emblematic of the mansion's enduring mystery. It is a story that captures the imagination and fuels the fears of those who venture into the old home, highlighting the intersection of history, tragedy, and the supernatural. The disappearance serves as a chilling reminder that some spirits remain restless. Some halls carry echoes of sorrow and anger, and some buildings harbor secrets that resist explanation. Even today, on nights when the fog rolls thick over the Louisiana Bayou, visitors report hearing the faint sound of footsteps along the upper floors, the soft echo of a voice calling, and glimpses of shadows that disappear before they can be fully seen. The mansion stands as a monument to the unknown, a place where the past lingers and the spirits of Myrtle's Plantation continue to claim the night. Those who have heard the story of the vanishing tourist approach the mansion with a mixture of awe and fear, aware that, within its walls, the boundary between the living and the dead may be thinner than it seems. The Hoia Baciu forest in Romania has earned a global reputation as one of the most mysterious and unsettling forests in the world. But the United States has its own forests, steeped in eerie legends and unexplained disappearances. Across the country, dense woodlands carry stories of hikers who vanish without a trace, strange lights hovering between the trees, and shadowy figures glimpsed out of the corner of an eye. One particular incident illustrates just how these forests can captivate and terrify those who enter, leaving behind an enduring aura of mystery that has grown over decades of unexplained occurrences. In the Appalachian Mountains of the eastern United States, a popular hiking trail winds through thick hardwood forests, their canopy casting long shadows and filtering sunlight into patches of gold and green. Locals speak of a hiker who entered the woods alone one early autumn morning and never returned. This person was an experienced outdoorsman, familiar with navigation, survival skills, and the unpredictable nature of the wilderness. They had packed light but adequately, a backpack containing water, snacks, a first aid kit, and a flashlight. Yet, despite preparation and familiarity with the terrain, the hiker disappeared in a way that would leave investigators and local residents baffled for years. The story begins with the hiker leaving a small trailhead at dawn, excited to explore a less traveled portion of the forest. Friends and family expected a routine day hike, confident in the hiker's abilities. Hours passed, and the hiker did not return. Concerned, the family alerted local authorities, and a search and rescue team mobilized immediately. What they found was peculiar and unsettling. The hiker's backpack and scattered belongings were discovered near a bend in the trail. as if the individual had simply vanished into thin air. There were no signs of struggle, no footprints leading away from the location, and no evidence that the hiker had left the area intentionally. It was as if the forest itself had swallowed them. Local hikers and forest rangers report that this particular woodland has an unusual energy. Visitors often describe a sense of being watched, and many recount sudden changes in weather, fog rolling in within minutes, inexplicable drops in temperature, and thick mists that disorient even the most experienced explorers. Shadowy figures are occasionally seen flitting between trees, always just beyond the reach of clear sight. Some people speak of whispers carried on the wind, a subtle but persistent sensation that someone or something is following them. These phenomena, combined with the forest's dense undergrowth and twisting trails, make the area both fascinating and terrifying to those who venture in. Search teams combed the forest for days, using thermal imaging, dogs, and aerial support, yet no trace of the hiker was ever found. Investigators noted that in some areas EMF readings were inconsistent, compasses malfunctioned, and GPS devices lost signal inexplicably. Locals began to whisper that the forest itself was alive in some way, capable of disorienting or even concealing those who entered its depths. The missing hiker's disappearance joined a long lineage of unexplained vanishings that have been reported in remote U.S. forests, echoing similar mysteries from around the world. Eyewitness accounts from other hikers lend further weight to the forest's eerie reputation. Many describe seeing shadowy figures moving between trees, but when approached, the shapes vanish as though they were never there. Some hikers report hearing distant calls, laughter, or murmurs with no apparent source. Others have experienced sudden, disorienting fog that makes trails and landmarks nearly impossible to recognize, leading them to retrace their steps in circles for hours. These encounters, while unsettling, are often dismissed as tricks of the mind, hallucinations brought on by fatigue, fear, or the natural challenges of dense woodland. Yet the consistency of such reports suggests that there may be something more at work. Paranormal investigators and folklorists have long been drawn to these forests, seeking to document unexplained phenomena and understand their origins. Some theorize that these areas are focal points for residual energy, retaining echoes of past events, emotions, or even lives. Others suggest that forests like this one may contain portals or thresholds where the boundary between the natural world and other dimensions becomes thinner. Whether these explanations are metaphysical, psychological, or a combination of both, the experiences of hikers who vanish or encounter strange phenomena cannot be entirely dismissed. For the family and friends of the lost hiker, the incident remains a source of grief and unanswered questions. They return to the forest in search of closure, retracing trails and calling out for the missing individual, but the forest gave no reply. The abandoned backpack and scattered belongings serve as silent, haunting reminders of the day someone disappeared into the unknown. Stories of the missing hiker circulate among locals, warning newcomers to respect the forest's mysteries and never underestimate its power to disorient, confuse, or conceal those who enter its depths. Over time, the forest has taken on a mythic quality. Visitors speak of an almost palpable energy, of paths that shift and mists that roll in unpredictably. Shadowy figures are glimpsed from the corner of the eye. Footsteps echo through empty clearings, and whispers sometimes drift across the trees. The forest seems to hold memories, or perhaps intentions, that remain hidden from ordinary perception. For many, it is both a place of natural beauty and an enduring enigma, where the ordinary rules of reality feel stretched or suspended. The story of the lost hiker in the U.S. forest mirrors legends from Hoia Baciu in Romania, where travelers report similar experiences of sudden mists, disorienting paths, and disappearing visitors. These parallels suggest that certain forests, whether in Europe or America, may share qualities that provoke fear, fascination, and respect. There are spaces where human perception is tested, and where the line between the known and the unknown blurs. Today, hikers continue to explore the forest, drawn by its natural allure and its mysterious reputation. They share stories of shadows glimpsed between trees, unexpected chills, and mists that roll in without warning. The vanished hiker remains a solemn reminder of the forest's hidden power, a place where the unexpected can happen, where the unexplained lingers, and where the unknown may claim those who venture too far into its depths. Even seasoned explorers leave with a cautious respect, aware that in forests like these, the past, the present, and the unexplained coexist in ways that defy easy understanding. Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Kentucky has long been infamous as one of America's most haunted locations, drawing ghost hunters, thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts from across the country. Originally opened in the early 20th century as a tuberculosis hospital, its long history is steeped in tragedy. Thousands of patients suffered and died within its walls, and over the decades, numerous reports of apparitions, shadow figures, and unexplained phenomena have cemented its reputation as a place where the past refuses to rest. Yet, despite the many documented hauntings, the disappearance of a teenager during a group paranormal investigation remains one of the most chilling events in the sanatorium's history. The incident took place on a moonlit night when a small team of paranormal enthusiasts, including a group of teenagers, entered the abandoned hospital to document activity firsthand. Equipped with cameras, EMF detectors, and audio recorders, the group planned to explore the hospital's most infamous areas, including the morgue, the basement tunnels, and the upper hallways once used for patient wards. Excitement and nervous energy ran high as they stepped inside, the cold air pressing against their skin and the creaking floors amplifying every sound. Among the group was a teenager whose fascination with the paranormal was matched only by their curiosity. Early in the exploration, they separated slightly from the group, drawn to a dimly lit corridor on the second floor. Witnesses recall hearing their footsteps echoing down the hallway, interspersed with the faint click of a camera capturing images of the peeling walls and rusted fixtures. Moments later, they vanished. Security footage from cameras positioned in the main hallway shows the teenager stepping into a long corridor, pausing as if listening, and then walking deeper into the shadows. For a brief instant, the figure appears, illuminated by the faint moonlight, streaming through broken windows. But within seconds, the hallway is empty. No movement, no sound, and no trace of where the teenager had gone. Panic quickly set in among the group, as calls and attempts to find their friend yielded no response. Every corner was checked, every door opened, but the teenager was nowhere to be found. Investigators and paranormal experts who later examined the scene suggested that residual energy within the hospital could have played a role. Waverly Hills is widely believed to retain imprints of past trauma, emotional echoes left by the countless patients who suffered and died there. Some areas, particularly the second-floor wards and the infamous body chute, are said to be hotspots for paranormal activity, where sensations of being watched, sudden chills, and unexplained whispers are commonly reported. Those who entered these spaces often describe a palpable presence, a feeling that the air itself is charged with memories and unrest. Witness accounts from the night of the disappearance detail a series of unsettling phenomena. Members of the group reported sudden drops in temperature along the hallway where the teenager vanished, as well as flickering lights and distorted audio captured on handheld recorders. Some even claimed to feel an invisible pressure against their bodies, a weight on their shoulders or a tug at their arms, as if unseen hands were attempting to guide or restrain them. These experiences, combined with the vanishing, led many to theorize that malevolent spirits, or perhaps the cumulative energy of decades of suffering, may have interacted directly with the teenager. Search efforts extended for days. Law enforcement, rescue teams, and volunteers scoured the surrounding property, checked abandoned tunnels, and combed the nearby woods, yet no trace of the teenager was ever found. The event sent shockwaves through the local community and the wider paranormal research world. Experts debated whether the disappearance was the result of supernatural forces or an unexplained accident within the labyrinthine building. Given the hospital's documented history of hauntings including shadow figures, ghostly apparitions, and inexplicable sounds theories, leaning toward paranormal involvement, gained significant attention. Paranormal investigators who revisited the site after the incident reported numerous anomalies consistent with previous accounts. EMF readings fluctuated wildly in the areas where the teenager had been last seen, while thermal cameras captured fleeting shapes in empty hallways. Audio recorders picked up faint whispers repeating unintelligible phrases, and some investigators noted an oppressive sensation that seemed to follow them as they walked through the second-floor corridors. While skeptics dismissed these occurrences as natural explanations for old buildings such as drafts, creaking floors, or equipment malfunction, the consistency of the experiences fueled speculation that something beyond the ordinary might be present. The teenager's disappearance also contributed to Waverly Hill's notoriety as a place where curiosity can be dangerous. Visitors now approach the sanatorium with heightened caution, aware that wandering alone, particularly in the more active sections, carries real risk. Tales of ghostly figures, doors that open and close by themselves, and sudden drops in temperature have always been part of the folklore surrounding the sanatorium. But the vanishing added a tangible, chilling layer to the legend. Locals and seasoned paranormal explorers alike often recount the story as a warning that Waverly Hills is more than a historical site, more than a destination for thrill seekers. It is a place where the boundary between the living and the dead feels fragile, where echoes of the past can reach out with unexpected force. The disappearance of a teenager visitor entirely unconnected to the hospital's tragic history serves as a stark reminder of this reality. To this day, the teenager has never been found, and the case remains unsolved. The incident continues to draw both fascination and fear, prompting visitors and investigators to tread carefully when exploring the abandoned hallways of Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Shadowy figures continue to be reported, doors slam without explanation, and whispers echo through empty rooms. Whether the teenager was claimed by residual energy malevolent spirits or some other unknown force, the disappearance remains an enduring testament to the sanatorium's dark legacy, a place where the past clings stubbornly to the present, and the line between the living and the dead is perilously thin. Gettysburg Battlefield in Pennsylvania is one of the most historic and haunted locations in the United States. Known for the pivotal Civil War battle fought there in 1863, the fields are steeped in the memory of thousands of soldiers who perished amid gunfire and smoke. Over the years, Gettysburg has become a site of fascination for historians, tourists, and paranormal enthusiasts alike. Visitors often speak of cold spots, ghostly figures, disembodied voices, and unexplained sounds that seem to echo across the hallowed ground. Yet, among the countless stories of sightings and strange experiences, one incident stands out for its chilling severity: the disappearance of a camper who vanished without a trace during an overnight visit to the battlefield. The camper, a young adult with a passion for history and the paranormal, had planned a solo excursion to Gettysburg. They pitched their tent near a less traveled portion of the battlefield, close to the site where fierce combat had taken place. The sun had set, and an autumn chill settled over the rolling hills, creating an eerie but peaceful atmosphere. As night fell, the camper recorded video logs and took notes, hoping to document any unusual occurrences in the area. Their campsite was quiet at first, save for the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind and the distant call of night birds. Around midnight, witnesses from a nearby camp reported hearing sudden, piercing screams that seemed to come from the direction of the lone camper's tent. These were followed by what sounded like hurried footsteps on the grass, accompanied by low, muttered voices. The sounds were indistinct, yet unnerving, echoing through the open fields in a way that made it impossible to determine their origin. By the time anyone approached the area, there was no one to be found, and the camper's tent appeared untouched, the entrance closed and undisturbed. Search and rescue teams were called immediately. They combed the surrounding terrain, checked nearby woods, and scoured the historic roads and trails that crisscrossed the battlefield. Despite hours of searching, no trace of the camper was found, no footprints leading away, no personal belongings left behind, and no evidence of foul play. Investigators were left with a baffling and troubling mystery. How could someone vanish from an open campsite without leaving a single clue? Paranormal experts who later examined the site suggested that the disappearance could be connected to the lingering presence of the soldiers who once fought and died there. Gettysburg is renowned for reports of spectral soldiers marching through fields, faint gunfire in the distance, and ghostly figures appearing at night. Some believe that the emotional and spiritual energy left by the thousands of deaths on the battlefield has created a persistent resonance, a kind of residual haunting that can interact with the living under certain conditions. Those familiar with Gettysburg's haunted history note that specific areas of the battlefield are particularly active after dark. Witnesses describe seeing shadowy figures in period uniforms, hearing muffled orders or cries for help, and feeling sudden drops in temperature. Many visitors report a sensation of being watched or followed, even when no one else is nearby. The section of the field where the camper was staying is near locations where some of the bloodiest confrontations occurred, suggesting that residual energy could be unusually strong there. Eyewitnesses who were camping nearby the night of the disappearance recall feeling an oppressive presence, as if the atmosphere itself was charged with unseen activity. They reported hearing whispered commands, the distant clash of rifles, and the unmistakable sound of boots moving across the grass. Some described seeing fleeting shadows crossing their line of sight, never clearly visible but undeniably present. The screams heard that night were interpreted by some as echoes of the battle itself, carried forward by spiritual energy, or as a direct interaction with the camper. Law enforcement and investigators considered conventional explanations, including the possibility that the camper had wandered into the woods, become lost, or suffered an accident. However, the thoroughness of the search, the lack of footprints or clues, and the location's relatively open terrain made such scenarios seem unlikely. The unusual circumstances led many to speculate that the camper's disappearance was connected to paranormal activity, perhaps drawn into a spectral reenactment of the battle or confronted by entities unable or unwilling to let them leave. Paranormal researchers visiting the site later reported additional phenomena consistent with historical accounts. EMF detectors fluctuated erratically. Video cameras captured faint orbs and shadowy shapes. And audio recordings picked up unexplained voices repeating fragments of old commands or cries of pain. Some theorists suggest that Gettysburg functions as a kind of spiritual nexus, where traumatic energy accumulates and occasionally intersects with the living world. In this framework, the camper's disappearance could be seen as an extreme manifestation of the battlefield's restless energy. Local guides and historians often recount the story of the missing camper as a cautionary tale. Gettysburg is not merely a site for recreation or historical curiosity. It is a place where the past lingers with intensity, and where visitors are reminded that the spirits of those who died may still be present. Campers, photographers, and ghost hunters are advised to remain vigilant, to travel in groups, and to respect the history and energy of the land. The vanished camper's disappearance remains unresolved. Despite extensive investigations, the individual was never located, and no evidence has surfaced to explain what happened. The incident has cemented Gettysburg's reputation as a site where history and the paranormal collide, where the echoes of a violent past persist in ways that continue to baffle and terrify. Even today, visitors report unusual activity near the area where the camper was last seen. Some hear faint screams carried by the wind. Others feel cold drafts despite calm weather, and occasional glimpses of shadowy figures in period uniforms continue to appear. The story of the lost camper serves as a chilling reminder that Gettysburg battlefield is more than a historical site. It is a place where the past may reach out to the present, where the spirits of soldiers still walk, and where the unexplained can claim those who wander too far into its haunted fields. Bell Witch Cave in Adams, Tennessee, has long been shrouded in stories of mystery, fear, and unexplained phenomena. The cave, nestled along the wooded hills of Robertson County, is infamous as part of the legend of the Bell Witch, a spirit that terrorized the Bell family in the early 19th century. Over the years, countless visitors have reported strange sounds, shadowy figures, sudden chills, and a general feeling of unease when entering the cave. Yet, despite the many eerie accounts, one incident in particular stands out: the disappearance of a tourist who vanished while exploring the cave, leaving behind only her personal belongings. The tourist, an avid history buff with a fascination for paranormal activity, had joined a small guided tour of the cave. She carried a camera to document her visit, hoping to capture images of the unique geological formations and perhaps even a glimpse of something supernatural. The group entered the cave in the early afternoon, the sunlight quickly fading behind them as they descended into the shadowed interior. The air grew cool and damp, with the earthy scent of stone and soil filling the passages. Guides warned of uneven floors, narrow tunnels, and the potential for low visibility in the deeper sections. According to eyewitnesses, the tourist had become particularly captivated by a fog that had formed in one of the larger caverns. She moved slightly ahead of the group, raising her camera to take a photo of the swirling mist. Moments later, the guides reported seeing her step into the dense fog, and then she simply disappeared. The mist was unnaturally thick, curling and shifting in ways that seemed almost purposeful, and the area where she had stood was empty within seconds. The group immediately began calling out her name, searching the cavern floor and nearby passages, but found no sign of her. Her camera, water bottle, and small backpack remained on the cave floor, undisturbed, as if she had vanished into thin air. Guides, who had been in the cave countless times, claimed that they had never seen fog behave in such a manner, and described a feeling of oppressive presence in the moment following her disappearance. Local law enforcement and rescue teams were called in, but despite hours of searching, there was no trace of the tourist. No footprints led away, no disturbances were found beyond her belongings, and no indication suggested she had exited the cave on her own. Paranormal experts familiar with the Bell Witch legend noted that the cave has long been associated with disappearances, eerie voices, and unexplained sounds. The Bell Witch itself is said to have a presence within the area, lingering in the forest and cave where the Bell family once lived. Some legends suggest that the spirit could manipulate physical reality, creating disorienting fog, moving objects, or even removing individuals from the world of the living temporarily or permanently. The tourist disappearance was quickly linked to these long-standing stories, fueling speculation that she had encountered the Bell Witch in a direct and terrifying way. Other visitors and guides have reported similar phenomena in the cave over the years. Shadowy forms have been seen darting across passageways, strange whispers echo through the tunnels, and sudden gusts of cold air have been felt in otherwise still areas. Some have even reported hearing footsteps or voices that seem to call their names, only for the sounds to vanish when they try to locate the source. Paranormal investigators often cite these experiences as evidence that the Bell Witch Cave is not just a historical site, but a location where the veil between the living and the supernatural is exceptionally thin. Those who were present during the disappearance recall the unsettling feeling of being watched, even in the absence of light or other people. Some described a sudden tightening in the chest, a pressure that seemed to emanate from the fog itself, and a disorienting sense of space that made it nearly impossible to determine where the cave ended or where she might have gone. Audio recordings captured during the incident reportedly picked up low murmurs that resembled human voices, though their content was indecipherable. Search efforts extended beyond the cave into the surrounding wooded area, but no clues were found. Law enforcement concluded that, without any evidence of an accident, foul play, or exit from the cave, the disappearance remained unexplained. The incident received significant media attention, further cementing Bell Witch Cave as one of the most mysterious and frightening locations in the United States. Local folklore suggests that the Bell Witch is drawn to those who are curious, brave, or skeptical, testing them with unexplained phenomena and, in some cases, claiming them entirely. The disappearance of the tourist has become a modern addition to the legend, a cautionary tale warning visitors to respect the cave and its history. Guides now emphasize the importance of staying with the group, avoiding the fog, and remaining aware of the surrounding environment. Despite these warnings, many are still drawn to the cave, seeking proof of the paranormal or hoping to witness the unexplained firsthand. Today, the missing tourist remains unaccounted for, and the case is officially unsolved. Her belongings remain a silent testament to the event, left in the exact spot where she vanished. Visitors report feeling sudden chills, hearing faint whispers, and seeing fog that appears to shift unnaturally in the same area where she disappeared. For those who enter Bellwitch Cave, the story serves as a stark reminder. The cave is more than a historical site. It is a place where legends come alive, where the boundary between the living and the supernatural feels dangerously thin, and where curiosity can have chilling, irreversible consequences. The disappearance continues to haunt both locals and paranormal enthusiasts, reinforcing the cave's reputation as a site of unexplainable events. Bellwitch Cave is not just a destination for exploration, it is a space where the past, the unseen, and the unexplained converge, leaving a lasting impression on all who dare to enter. The story of the missing tourist stands as a chilling testament to the cave's enduring mystique, reminding visitors that some mysteries are far more than mere legends. They are active, present, and undeniably real. The Devil's Tramping Ground in Chatham County, North Carolina, has long been the subject of folklore, warnings, and eerie stories. A barren, circular patch of earth in the middle of a wooded clearing. The circle is roughly 40 feet in diameter, and locals have long claimed it is a place where strange forces gather. The soil inside the circle remains mysteriously barren, even while vegetation grows just beyond its perimeter. For generations, tales have circulated that nothing planted inside the circle will grow, and that any footprints left within will vanish overnight. The area has earned its ominous name because of the belief that the devil himself walks the circle at night, pacing endlessly, leaving a path of unexplainable emptiness behind him. One weekend, a hiker with a fascination for the paranormal decided to explore the Devil's Tramping Ground alone. Equipped with a backpack, camera, and flashlight, they set out to document the strange circular clearing that had drawn curiosity seekers for decades. Locals cautioned against wandering into the circle, sharing stories of sudden chills, uneasy feelings, and even minor disappearances. But the hiker was confident in their ability to navigate the area safely. Upon reaching the clearing, they were struck by the circle's stark emptiness and the dense woods surrounding it, a quiet that seemed almost unnatural in its intensity. The hiker began by examining the perimeter, photographing the odd, undisturbed ground, and noting how nothing had taken root in the center. Small animals scurried at the edges of the clearing, yet the circle itself remained devoid of life, as if some invisible force had claimed the soil as its own. Curiosity eventually overcame caution, and the hikers stepped into the center of the circle, the soil crunching softly beneath their boots. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but as they took a few steps across the barren earth, a sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing. Despite the surrounding woods remaining still, the temperature seemed to drop sharply, and the hiker felt a strange sensation, as though invisible eyes were watching every movement. Moments later, the hiker reportedly raised their camera to take photographs of the circle itself. A local guide who had been nearby recounts that they looked up to see a sudden swirl of fog or dust rising from the center, and then the hiker was gone. No screams were heard, no struggle, nothing to indicate a fall or accident. Only an empty clearing remained. The disturbed soil where the hiker had been appearing strangely smooth, as if untouched. Searchers arrived quickly after the hiker failed to return. Rescue teams combed the surrounding woods, checked trails, and even scoured nearby creeks. But no trace of the hiker was ever found. Their backpack and camera were left behind at the circle's edge, untouched, and their footprints inside the circle had vanished completely. The disappearance sent shockwaves through the local community. Longtime residents spoke of past incidents in which hikers, explorers, or curious visitors had felt uneasy within the circle. Some reporting phantom footsteps pacing nearby, glimpses of shadowy figures, and an overwhelming sense of dread. It was said that any footprints left within the circle disappear overnight, reinforcing the belief that the ground is actively cursed or protected by some malevolent presence. Paranormal investigators visiting the site noted unusual electromagnetic readings, inexplicable cold spots, and even faint whispering on audio recordings, adding credibility to the local warnings. Many who have visited the Devil's Tramping Ground emphasize the psychological weight of the location. The circle seems to exert a subtle influence on those who step inside, instilling unease, disorientation, and heightened anxiety. Some speculate that the circle acts as a trap or portal, drawing individuals in with curiosity only to envelop them in an unseen force. Witnesses recount how time seems to distort when standing within the circle. Minutes stretch into hours, and the forest beyond appears to shift subtly, making it difficult to orient oneself. Following the hiker's disappearance, paranormal researchers theorize that the Devil's Tramping Ground may serve as a hotspot for residual energy, a place where the spirits of past visitors or supernatural forces linger, interacting with the living in unpredictable ways. Some believe that stepping into the circle invokes the attention of these forces, with the potential to absorb or displace those who trespass into its center. Others argue that the ground itself may be an ancient site of ritualistic significance, naturally infused with energies that defy rational explanation. The incident has made the circle even more notorious, attracting both thrill-seekers and those curious about the paranormal. Visitors continue to report strange sensations, eerie sounds, and fleeting shadows when near the circle, especially at night. Despite repeated warnings, many are drawn to the site, hoping to witness firsthand the mysteries that have long surrounded it. Locals maintain a cautious respect for the Devil's Tramping Ground. Signs around the area warn visitors of the circle's strange influence, and guides frequently advise against stepping into the center. The story of the missing hiker serves as a stark reminder that the circle may not be a place for casual exploration, and that some curiosities come with profound risk. To this day, the hiker remains missing, their fate unknown. Their disappearance has become part of the enduring legend of the Devil's Tramping Ground, a place where the earth itself seems alive with unseen forces, where curiosity may lead to vanishing, and where footprints and individuals alike can disappear without a trace. Those who venture close are reminded that this is more than a simple clearing in the woods. It is a site of mystery, danger, and unexplained phenomena, a place where the past, the supernatural, and the unknown converge in ways that continue to baffle and terrify all who step too close to its cursed circle. In the dense, shadowed forests of Oregon, there exists a trail infamous among locals for its eerie atmosphere and the unsettling reports of hikers who never return. The forest, reminiscent of Japan's Aokigahara, has long carried a reputation as a place where travelers lose their way inexplicably, and where a strange, almost malevolent energy seems to linger among the towering pines and dense undergrowth. Despite warnings and folklore, many are drawn to the area, either seeking solitude, adventure, or a glimpse of the supernatural. In the summer of 2022, a couple from Portland decided to hike this forested trail, intrigued by the rumors of ghostly activity and mysterious disappearances. They arrived early in the morning, their car parked neatly at the lot near the trailhead. The couple was experienced in backcountry hiking, carrying maps, GPS devices, and supplies for a full-day trek. Guides and locals had cautioned them about the forest's disorienting nature. People often reported feeling as though the trees themselves shifted, that paths seemed to move, and that compasses and electronic devices acted strangely within the dense canopy. As the couple began their hike, the forest immediately imposed an unusual stillness. Birdsong was minimal, the air heavy with the scent of moss and damp earth, and the sunlight filtered through the dense canopy in streaks that barely reached the forest floor. Witnesses later described seeing the couple walking along the trail, their bright clothing standing out against the muted greens and browns, but within a short distance, the trail seemed to dissolve. Branches appeared in patterns that obscured the path, and familiar landmarks vanished as if swallowed by the forest itself. By mid-afternoon, The couple had failed to return to the parking area at the expected time. Concerned, a friend who had accompanied them to the lot called local authorities. Search teams were dispatched, combing the main trail and surrounding offshoots with flashlights, drones, and even thermal imaging. Their search revealed only the couple's abandoned car, parked exactly where they had left it. There were no footprints leading into the deeper parts of the forest beyond the initial trail. No signs of struggle, and no indications that the hikers had left the area on foot. The trail markers that had guided them initially seemed to vanish, leaving search teams disoriented as well. Witnesses who later visited the forest described an unsettling feeling in the same area. Travelers reported sudden drops in temperature, a sense of being watched, and the persistent feeling that the forest itself was shifting. The trails seemed to warp, leading even seasoned hikers in circles, often back to the same clearing or parking lot without explanation. Some individuals claimed to hear whispers carried on the wind, soft, unintelligible murmurs that seemed almost coaxing, urging them to venture deeper. Others reported seeing fleeting shadows moving between the trees, shadows that vanished when approached. Paranormal investigators familiar with the region theorized that this forest functions as a hotspot for residual energy or forces that interfere with human perception and navigation. Audio captured by researchers included faint murmurs and ghostly sounds resembling footsteps. Although no one was present to produce them, many investigators likened the experience to accounts from Japan's Aokigahara, where hikers report being drawn into deeper areas of the forest by forces they cannot explain. Locals speculate that certain parts of the forest act almost like a trap, disorienting visitors, erasing trails, and concealing paths. Legends tell of forces within the forest that manipulate space and perception, ensuring that those who enter without respect or caution may never find their way out. Some say the energy is tied to the history of the land, a combination of natural phenomena and lingering human emotions, creating a dense atmosphere capable of ensnaring the living. The disappearance of the couple added a modern, chilling chapter to these tales, reinforcing the forest's fearsome reputation. The area's authorities continue to post warnings at the trailhead, urging hikers to travel in groups, to carry reliable navigation equipment, and to remain vigilant at all times. Yet, many are still drawn to the forest, drawn by curiosity or the thrill of testing themselves against the unknown. Visitors often report strange feelings of vertigo, sudden lightheadedness, and a compulsion to turn off marked paths and wander into denser thickets. Those who have ventured in solo or stayed past dusk speak of hearing whispers, seeing shadows at the periphery of vision, and encountering fog that appears and disappears in unnatural ways. Despite extensive search efforts, the couple remains missing to this day. Their belongings, including backpacks and cameras, were never recovered beyond the parking lot. The lack of evidence has left both authorities and locals mystified, with theories ranging from accidental injury to supernatural intervention. Paranormal enthusiasts argue that the forest's strange energies may have guided the couple off the trail entirely, perhaps into a liminal space that exists parallel to the physical world. Others suggest that whatever forces are at play selectively manipulate perception, making it impossible for rescuers to retrace the missing hiker's steps. The forest's allure persists, however, as visitors continue to come in search of adventure or paranormal encounters. Every disappearance, every strange occurrence, adds to the growing aura of dread surrounding the area. The story of the missing couple serves as both a cautionary tale and a testament to the forest's power. It is not merely a natural landscape, but a place where unseen forces seem capable of guiding, disorienting, or even removing those who enter. The trail where the couple vanished has since become a symbol of the forest's mysterious influence, a location where curiosity and misfortune intersect, and where visitors are reminded that some paths are best left unexplored. The disappearance remains unsolved, and the forest continues to guard its secrets. Every hiker who enters the shaded trails does so at their own risk, aware that the ground beneath their feet might conceal forces far beyond understanding. The story of the couple's vanishing lingers in the minds of those who know the legend, a chilling example of the forest's enduring, inexplicable power a place where the living can step into the unknown and sometimes never return. In the outskirts of Athens, Ohio, the abandoned Athens Asylum has long been a destination for urban explorers, paranormal investigators, and curious locals. Built in the 19th century, the sprawling institution once housed thousands of patients, many of whom suffered under harsh conditions and questionable medical practices. Over the decades, the asylum became notorious for reports of mistreatment, unexplained deaths, and tragic suicides. Today, it stands as a decaying labyrinth of brick corridors, rusted iron bars, and empty wards, a place where shadows linger and whispers of the past seem to echo through the halls. In the fall of 2023, 3 college students, all enthusiasts of the paranormal and eager to document their experiences, decided to explore the asylum for a class project. Armed with cameras, audio recorders, and flashlights, they entered the historic site just after dusk, drawn by stories of ghost sightings, mysterious figures, and sudden cold drafts reported by previous visitors. The students had carefully planned their exploration, noting the asylum's layout and prioritizing areas that were officially off-limits, including the infamous locked wing where many of the asylum's most tragic events occurred. Initially, the exploration proceeded uneventfully. The students captured footage of crumbling walls, empty rooms, and long-abandoned medical equipment. The air inside the asylum carried a heavy chill, and even the smallest sounds, footsteps echoing on broken tiles. The creaking of a swinging door felt amplified, heightening the sense of isolation. As the group moved deeper into the locked wing, their excitement mixed with unease. The hallways were narrow, the ceilings low, and every shadow seemed to shift when they weren't looking directly at it. It was within this restricted section that the first strange occurrences were noticed. One student recorded a faint figure standing at the end of a hallway, only to vanish when approached. Another captured soft whispers on a digital recorder, seemingly calling their names, though the asylum was otherwise silent. Lights from their flashlights flickered unpredictably, and a sense of weight pressed on their chests, as though invisible hands were watching or even restraining them. Despite the eerie atmosphere, the students pressed on, eager to capture evidence for their project. At approximately 9:30 p.m., the group ventured into a particularly notorious corridor. Former patients had described seeing shadowy figures, hearing doors slam, and feeling sudden chills in the area. As the students set up cameras to record the hallway, they reportedly heard footsteps approaching from behind, though no one else was present. Panic began to rise as a sound of soft, urgent whispering echoed through the walls. One student claimed to feel a cold hand brush past their shoulder, and another described a fleeting glimpse of a face at the end of a room, pressed against a broken window pane. By 10 p.m., the students vanished. Their flashlights were found abandoned on the floor, still on, and their backpacks lay scattered near the entrance to the locked wing. No signs of struggle were evident, no footprints led deeper into the asylum, and no sound was heard from within the walls. Hours of searching by emergency personnel yielded no trace of the missing students. The only clues to their presence were the camera equipment they had left behind. The footage captured on the students' cameras was later reviewed by authorities and paranormal experts. On several recordings, faint apparitions were visible moving through the hallways, translucent figures in period clothing. Some with hollow eyes and mournful expressions. Ghostly faces appeared pressed against broken windows or floating silently along the walls. Audio recordings contained whispers, moans, and distant cries, often repeating the students' names in a way that suggested the voices were aware of their presence. One camera even captured a sudden distortion in the hallway, as if the corridor itself shifted and warped for a brief moment. Investigators speculated that the locked wing of Athens Asylum might harbor residual energy from decades of suffering and death. The fact that the students' equipment recorded paranormal activity, yet the students themselves disappeared, has led many to theorize that they were drawn into this energy trapped in a liminal space between the living world and the spiritual. Echoes that linger within the asylum. Others suggest that malevolent entities might have claimed them, their presence intended as a warning to future trespassers. Local folklore has long described the asylum as a place where time and space are distorted. Visitors report hallways appearing longer or shorter than expected, rooms shifting positions, and doors leading to areas that should not exist. Cold spots are prevalent, and many have felt an oppressive sense of being watched. The disappearance of the 3 students reinforced the reputation of the asylum as a dangerous site where curiosity and daring can quickly turn into peril. The incident sparked widespread attention, drawing media coverage and renewed interest from paranormal investigators. The families of the missing students have pleaded for information, but despite thorough searches and continued monitoring, no trace of the students has been recovered. Their camera equipment remains a chilling testament to their final moments inside the asylum, capturing the unexplained and hinting at forces beyond comprehension. Visitors today are warned to avoid the locked wings entirely, and security patrols have increased around the property. Yet, thrill seekers continue to attempt exploration, drawn by the notoriety of the asylum and the mysterious disappearance of the college students. Many who venture near report feeling sudden chills, hearing distant footsteps, and glimpsing shadowy figures, reinforcing the idea that Athens Asylum is a place where the past continues to intrude upon the present, and where the line between the living and the dead is dangerously thin. The story of the missing students serves as a cautionary tale and a chilling reminder. Some places carry energy too powerful, too dark, to be approached lightly. Athens Asylum, with its abandoned halls, tragic history, and unexplained phenomena, remains one of Ohio's most haunted locations, a site where shadows linger, whispers echo through empty corridors, and curious explorers may never return. The cameras left behind capture only fragments of what occurred, offering glimpses of a haunting world hidden behind decaying walls, where 3 young lives vanished, leaving only unanswered questions and the lingering presence of the asylum itself. The Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, Missouri, has long been shrouded in dark lore. Once the home of the wealthy and tragic Lemp family, the mansion is infamous not just for its grand architecture, but for the series of suicides and mysterious deaths that befell its occupants. Visitors, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts alike have long been drawn to its sprawling halls, ornate furnishings, and the eerie energy that seems to linger in every room. The mansion's wine cellar, in particular, has earned a reputation as one of the most haunted spots, said to harbor the restless spirits of the Lemp family who met untimely ends in their own home. In the summer of 2023, a tourist named Mark Evans visited the Lemp Mansion, eager to explore its historic rooms and capture photographs of its famed architecture. Armed with a camera and flashlight, he was particularly drawn to the stories surrounding the wine cellar, a dimly lit labyrinth beneath the mansion that once housed the family's extensive collection. Guided by curiosity and the thrill of stepping into a location steeped in history and haunted by tragedy, Mark ventured alone into the cellar. Despite warnings from staff about the mansion's eerie atmosphere, initially, the cellar seemed like a typical historical exhibit. Rows of dusty bottles, cobweb-covered racks, and cracked stone floors gave it an air of both antiquity and decay. However, as Mark descended further into the deeper sections, the temperature dropped noticeably, and the air grew heavy with a musty, almost metallic scent. Shadows danced along the walls as his flashlight flickered intermittently, creating the unsettling illusion that figures were moving just beyond his line of sight. According to witnesses, Mark's exploration took a strange turn when he entered a secluded corner of the wine cellar. Moments later, other tourists reported hearing a loud crash, followed by silence. When staff went to investigate, they found a single wine bottle smashed on the floor, shards scattered across the stone tiles. Disturbingly, footprints marks led into the cellar, but ended abruptly, vanishing as if he had walked into thin air. There were no signs of struggle, no indications that he had left the area on foot, and no sounds of footsteps retracing the path. It was as though the floor itself had swallowed him. Investigators arriving at the scene noted the smashed bottle and the vanishing footprints, both of which fueled rumors and deepened the legend surrounding the mansion. Paranormal experts examined the area, pointing out the extreme cold spots detected in the cellar and the oppressive feeling of being watched. Audio recordings captured faint whispers that seemed to rise from the floor itself, uttering words that were indecipherable, yet urgent. almost pleading. Shadowy shapes appeared on the footage from security cameras, moving along the walls and vanishing in areas that were supposedly empty. Some experts suggested that the spirits of the Limp family, long bound to the house by tragedy and unresolved anguish, may have claimed yet another victim. The disappearance of Mark Evans drew significant attention from both the public and paranormal researchers. Local police conducted extensive searches, combing the mansion and its grounds, but found no trace of the tourist. Cameras and infrared equipment showed nothing unusual beyond the wine cellar itself. Yet staff and visitors continued to report sudden chills and the sensation of being followed by unseen presences in that very area. Even after weeks of investigation, Mark's whereabouts remained a mystery. Stories of unexplained phenomena at the Lemp Mansion are numerous, but Mark's disappearance stands out for its immediacy and the stark evidence left behind. The cellar has long been linked to accounts of objects moving on their own, cold drafts that freeze the breath, and shadows flitting through corridors. Visitors have often reported hearing footsteps on stairs where no one is present, whispers echoing through empty rooms, and even glimpses of figures in Victorian attire. With the addition of a person vanishing in broad daylight, the legend of the mansion deepened, intertwining historical tragedy with a modern, unexplained event. Locals and paranormal enthusiasts speculate on the forces at work in the mansion. Some believe the wine cellar being a place where the family stored wine and, in some accounts, where despair and death culminated, has become a focal point for lingering spiritual energy. The sorrow and trauma that marked the Lemp family's history could be imprinted in the very walls, manifesting as phenomena that ensnare those who enter. Others suggest that the spirits are protective or territorial, drawing intruders into hidden spaces, or even trapping them in another plane of existence, temporarily or permanently. The mansion remains open to visitors, though staff now implement stricter precautions, discouraging solo exploration and restricting access to areas like the wine cellar where unusual activity is concentrated. Despite these measures, the allure of the mansion continues to attract thrill-seekers and paranormal investigators, eager to glimpse the supernatural or capture evidence of the unexplained. Many report feeling sudden changes in temperature, hearing whispers that seem to come from nowhere, and seeing shadows at the edge of their vision. Some even claim that when standing near the wine cellar, the weight of unseen eyes watching them becomes almost unbearable. Mark Evans' disappearance serves as a chilling reminder that the Lemp Mansion is more than a historical site. It is a place where the tragic history of a family intertwines with unexplained phenomena, creating an environment that can engulf even the most cautious visitor. The smashed bottle, the footprints leading nowhere, and the inexplicable absence of the tourist add another layer to the mansion's haunting legacy. It is a story whispered among locals, recounted by guides, and debated by paranormal enthusiasts, a narrative that reinforces the belief that the mansion's spirits remain restless, vigilant, and capable of reaching into the present to touch the living. Today, the mansion continues to stand as a testament to both the grandeur and the darkness of its past. Visitors walk its halls with a mixture of awe and trepidation, aware that the spirits of the Lemp family may still linger, especially in the wine cellar, where the tragic and the supernatural seem to converge. Mark Evans' disappearance remains unsolved, a modern mystery in a house long defined by tragedy, ensuring that the legend of the Lemp Mansion endures, haunting, compelling, and frightening all who dare enter. Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is one of the most infamous prisons in American history. Opened in 1829, it was designed to house the nation's most dangerous criminals under a revolutionary system of solitary confinement intended to encourage reflection and reform. Over the years, the prison became notorious for its harsh conditions, psychological torment, and numerous escapes and deaths. Even after its closure in 1971, the penitentiary has maintained a reputation for paranormal activity, drawing thrill-seekers, historians, and paranormal investigators eager to explore its crumbling cell blocks, shadowed corridors, and decaying walls. In the autumn of 2024, A professional photographer named Julia Morgan decided to capture night shots of the penitentiary for an art exhibit focused on abandoned architecture. Julia had a reputation for seeking out eerie, atmospheric locations. An eastern state offered the perfect combination of history and haunting beauty. Armed with high-resolution cameras, tripods, and flashlights, she entered the penitentiary shortly after sunset, determined to document the long corridors, rusted gates, and crumbling cells under the ghostly illumination of the moon. At first, the evening was uneventful, aside from the usual creaks and groans of the aging structure. Julia moved from cell to cell, photographing peeling paint, broken doors, and iron bars silhouetted against the dim light. The penitentiary's architecture, designed to maximize isolation and reflection, created long shadows that stretched across the floors and walls, giving the space a surreal, almost otherworldly appearance. Julia captured several striking images, each framed with dramatic contrasts of light and darkness, and commented in her notes about the unsettling quiet that seemed to press against her from all sides. Her focus shifted to a particularly long and narrow corridor on the east wing, an area often cited in paranormal reports. Guests and staff had described sudden cold spots, whispering voices, and fleeting glimpses of figures in this corridor. Julia, intrigued by the stories, aimed her camera along the hallway, hoping to capture the interplay of shadows and light. According to witnesses, she walked down the corridor with her tripod, pausing to adjust her camera settings, and then suddenly vanished. Security personnel monitoring the penitentiary's cameras noticed unusual activity shortly thereafter. Footage revealed a shadow moving along the corridor, elongated and distorted, as if it were independent of Julia's physical form. The shadow darted between the walls and columns of the hallway, disappearing from view within seconds. Despite extensive searches by the building's security team and local authorities, no trace of Julia was ever found. Her camera equipment remained in the corridor, still recording, with one camera capturing the final moments of movement before she disappeared. Paranormal investigators examining the case noted that the East Wing corridor has long been associated with unexplained phenomena. Visitors frequently report hearing footsteps echoing in empty halls, doors slamming without cause, and faint whispers that seem to follow them. Some have claimed to see shadowy figures pacing behind barred cells or peering from the darkness. The penitentiary's unique architecture, designed to isolate inmates, may amplify residual energy, creating a space where intense emotions from the past continue to reverberate. Julia's disappearance added a chilling chapter to the penitentiary's storied history, reinforcing the belief that the building itself holds restless spirits capable of influencing the living. Audio recordings retrieved from Julia's equipment were particularly unsettling. Microphones picked up low, indistinct whispers that seemed to shift across the corridor, echoing in ways that did not correspond to the room's layout. Some voices appeared to call Julia's name, while others emitted soft moans and groans, resembling the sounds of long-suffering inmates. Thermal imaging from some cameras recorded sudden cold spots along the floor and walls, indicating the presence of something unexplainable in the corridor at the time of her disappearance. Eyewitness accounts from other visitors in the penitentiary corroborated the unusual nature of the East Wing corridor. Several people reported seeing figures out of the corner of their eyes, only to vanish when directly observed. Others have felt sudden drops in temperature or the sensation of being followed by an unseen presence. These experiences, combined with Julia's unexplained disappearance, suggest that the corridor is a focal point for paranormal activity, where residual energy, lost souls, or more malevolent forces may still linger. The disappearance sparked public interest and media coverage, drawing attention to the penitentiary's haunted reputation. Experts in paranormal research theorized that Julia may have inadvertently crossed into a space influenced by residual energy, where the boundary between the living and the dead becomes blurred. Some suggested that the intense emotions and suffering that permeated the penitentiary over its operational years could have created pockets of energy capable of interacting with or even drawing in living individuals. Despite extensive searches and investigations, Julia Morgan's fate remains unknown. Her photographs, many of which captured strange light anomalies and shadowy forms, continue to circulate among paranormal circles, with enthusiasts claiming that some images contain faint, human-like silhouettes in the backgrounds of her shots. The absence of Julia herself adds a weight of reality to these claims, reminding observers that the prison's ghostly legends are not merely stories. They can intersect with the lives of the living in terrifying ways. Today, Eastern State Penitentiary remains a destination for tourists, historians, and paranormal investigators. Though the East Wing corridor where Julia vanished is approached with caution, guides warn visitors of its reputation, and security patrols have increased. Yet stories of unexplained footsteps, cold drafts, and fleeting shadows persist. The penitentiary stands as both a historical monument and a haunted landmark, its walls holding the echoes of human suffering, despair, and mystery. The story of Julia Morgan serves as a stark reminder that some places are haunted, not by myth alone, but by lingering energy that can affect the living. Eastern State Penitentiary, with its dark past, decaying corridors, and inexplicable phenomena, remains one of the most chilling sights in the United States. The East Wing corridor, where Julia disappeared, continues to fascinate and terrify, a place where the past refuses to rest, and where the boundary between the living and the dead may be perilously thin. The St. Augustine Lighthouse in Florida stands as one of the most iconic and mysterious landmarks along the Atlantic coast. Built in the 19th century, the lighthouse has long guided ships through treacherous waters, yet it has also developed a reputation for paranormal activity. Over the years, visitors and staff have reported strange shadows, unexplained footsteps, and ghostly figures, particularly in the upper tower and surrounding grounds. The lighthouse's history is steeped in tragedy, from shipwrecks claimed by the unforgiving ocean to accidents and deaths among the lighthouse keepers, giving rise to tales of restless spirits that linger to this day. In the summer of 2025, a teenager named Emily Thompson visited the lighthouse with a group of friends on one of the evening ghost tours offered by the historic site. Emily, a curious and adventurous high school student, had been fascinated by the supernatural for years. She carried a small camera and notebook, hoping to document any unusual phenomena she might encounter. The group was guided by a local historian and paranormal enthusiast who shared chilling stories of past lighthouse keepers, ghostly apparitions, and unexplained occurrences. The tour began at the base of the lighthouse, with the guide recounting tales of shipwrecked sailors whose spirits were said to haunt the surrounding beaches, and lighthouse keepers who never left the tower in life or death. Emily and her friends were captivated, moving from one section of the lighthouse to another, peering into cellars and climbable staircases where past tragedies were rumored to have occurred. As the evening grew darker, the shadows lengthened, and the Atlantic breeze carried a whispering chill through the air. As the group ascended the spiral staircase to the lighthouse tower, Emily lingered behind, fascinated by the old keeper's quarters that lined the stairwell. Guides later reported hearing a sudden, piercing scream that echoed through the walls, followed by a gust of wind so strong that it rattled the doors and extinguished several lanterns. By the time the other visitors reached the top of the staircase, Emily was gone. Search teams immediately began combing the lighthouse, examining every floor, corner, and surrounding grounds, but found no trace of her. Security cameras installed at the lighthouse captured a disturbing series of images. In one frame, a shadowy figure is seen moving across the staircase landing, blurred and elongated. Moments later, the figure disappears entirely, leaving only the empty space behind. Guides and witnesses recounted hearing whispers and faint giggling near the areas where Emily was last seen. Some described the sensation of being watched, as if unseen eyes followed their every movement. The lighthouse, already known for its eerie atmosphere, seemed charged with an unsettling energy that night. Paranormal investigators later visited the site, reviewing the security footage and interviewing staff. They noted sudden drops in temperature throughout the tower, particularly near the spiral staircase and the keeper's quarters. EVP recordings captured faint voices calling the name Emily, as well as murmurs in the background that were indecipherable, yet insistent. Investigators suggested that the energy within the lighthouse could be residual, tied to the tragic history of those who perished there. But others speculated that some malevolent presence might be responsible for drawing Emily into the unseen. The disappearance of Emily Thompson quickly drew local attention and widespread concern. Law enforcement conducted extensive searches of the lighthouse grounds, the adjacent beaches, and nearby wooded areas, deploying dogs and drones to scan inaccessible locations. Despite these efforts, no physical evidence was found. Personal items Emily had brought with her, including her camera and notebook, were left at the foot of the spiral staircase, further deepening the mystery of her vanishing. Friends and family described her as cautious yet adventurous, making her sudden disappearance all the more perplexing and frightening. Witnesses later reported ongoing activity at the lighthouse in the days following Emily's disappearance. Tour guides and visitors claimed to hear footsteps pacing along empty hallways, doors opening and closing with no one present, and lanterns flickering on their own. Some captured fleeting images of shadowy figures in photographs taken on the grounds, with shapes that seemed to move independently of any light source. Many began to believe that Emily's disappearance was not merely a tragic accident, but rather a chilling manifestation of the lighthouse's lingering spirits. The lighthouse has long been associated with a series of mysterious phenomena. Over the years, guests have seen the apparition of a young girl in old-fashioned clothing, heard voices echoing through empty rooms, and sensed sudden cold spots that defy explanation. Emily's disappearance added a new layer of unease, reinforcing the notion that the lighthouse may be a place where the veil between the living and the dead is disturbingly thin. Paranormal experts caution visitors to remain vigilant, especially when exploring less traveled areas such as the Upper Tower or the Keeper's Quarters. Despite the tragedy, the St. Augustine Lighthouse continues to welcome visitors, many of whom are drawn to its rich history and paranormal reputation. Guides now emphasize caution during night tours and stress the importance of staying with the group. Emily's vanishing remains a solemn reminder of the potential dangers lurking in places steeped in historical tragedy and unexplained phenomena. The lighthouse, with its towering silhouette against the night sky, stands as a symbol of both maritime history and spectral mystery. A beacon for those seeking to glimpse the unknown, yet a warning that some secrets may never reveal themselves fully. Emily Thompson's disappearance remains unsolved. Her story has become a part of the lighthouse's dark legacy, whispered among staff, visitors, and paranormal enthusiasts alike. The image of a shadow moving up the spiral staircase, the scream echoing through the tower, and the sudden gust of wind that preceded her vanishing continued to haunt those who were present that night. The St. Augustine Lighthouse, with its tragic history and eerie presence, endures as a place where the past refuses to rest, and where the living may encounter the spirits of those long gone, sometimes with consequences that remain as mysterious as the night itself. The RMS Queen Mary, permanently docked in Long Beach, California, is a vessel steeped in history and mystery. Launched in 1934, the ship served as a luxury liner before being repurposed as a troop transport during World War II. After its retirement, the Queen Mary became a floating hotel and museum, attracting tourists and paranormal enthusiasts alike. Over the decades, countless visitors have reported ghostly sightings, strange sounds, and unexplained occurrences aboard the ship, particularly in areas like the engine room, first-class staterooms, and the lower decks. The vessel's long history of accidents, deaths, and wartime tragedies has given rise to tales of restless spirits that continue to roam its steel corridors. In late 2024, a woman named Claire Reynolds joined a nighttime paranormal tour of the Queen Mary. Claire was an experienced ghost hunter, an avid history enthusiast, eager to explore the ship after hearing numerous stories of hauntings. The group she joined was led by a guide familiar with the vessel's eerie reputation, walking visitors through dimly lit hallways, past cabins frozen in time, and down narrow staircases that had seen nearly a century of human activity. The ship's ambient creaks, groans, and the distant clanging of metal in the night created an unnerving atmosphere that heightened every step. As the tour progressed, the group approached the lower decks near the engine room. This area has long been considered a hotspot for paranormal activity, with reports of cold spots, shadow figures, and disembodied voices echoing from the machinery. Claire, carrying a high-powered flashlight and a compact digital camera, lingered slightly behind the group, fascinated by the history and eerie architecture of the engine room corridor. Witnesses later recounted hearing a sudden, sharp intake of breath, followed by a low, whispering sound that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Moments later, Claire disappeared. Tour participants called out for her, but their voices returned only as echoes in the steel passageways. Panic spread quickly as the guide and visitors retraced their steps through the corridor, checking every room, nook, and passageway, yet found no trace of Claire. Her flashlight lay on the floor near the entrance to a narrow maintenance corridor leading deeper into the engine area. The batteries were intact, and her camera was still recording, capturing the final moments before her disappearance. Security cameras aboard the Queen Mary later provided unsettling footage. The camera near the engine room corridor recorded a faint, indistinct figure moving past a doorway. The figure appeared humanoid but lacked sharp definition, almost as if it were semi-transparent. It moved slowly down the corridor and disappeared from view, leaving the space empty. Observers reported feeling a sudden chill when watching the footage, accompanied by an overwhelming sense that something unseen had altered the normal flow of events in the corridor. Witnesses from the tour described strange occurrences leading up to the disappearance. Some said they felt sudden cold drafts that had no explanation, as the ship's climate control was fully operational. Others reported hearing soft footsteps echoing behind them, yet when they turned, the corridor remained empty. One visitor claimed to see a dark silhouette slip through a doorway just as Claire vanished. These accounts, combined with the security footage, suggested that Claire may have encountered a presence already known to haunt the Queen Mary. Paranormal investigators examining the case noted that the ship's engine room corridor is notorious for residual energy. The area has seen decades of intense human activity, including mechanical accidents, crew deaths, and wartime stress. Many experts theorize that such energy can sometimes manifest as apparitions, poltergeist activity, or even the temporary displacement of living individuals, as in Claire's case. Audio captured on her camera contained faint whispers and metallic clanking, despite no machinery operating at the time. Some voices seemed to murmur her name, while others were indecipherable yet insistent, echoing through the narrow steel passageways. Law enforcement and search teams conducted exhaustive sweeps of the ship, from the engine room to the upper decks, the cabins, and even the hull access points. Despite their efforts, there was no sign of Claire Reynolds. Her belongings, camera, flashlight, and small backpack remained at the corridor's entrance, suggesting she had vanished without taking any personal items with her. Dive teams and K-9 units were deployed in the surrounding waters, but no traces were found in the harbor. Her disappearance added a new chapter to the ship's long and disturbing history of unexplained phenomena. Stories of the Queen Mary's hauntings have long included apparitions of former crew members, phantom passengers, and shadowy figures seen in the corridors and engine rooms. Tour guides and staff have reported cold spots, inexplicable noises, and lights flickering for no reason. The ship's rich past of maritime service, wartime missions, and onboard accidents has made it a focal point for paranormal activity, drawing visitors hoping to glimpse the unknown. Claire's disappearance intensified these legends, reinforcing the notion that some areas of the ship remain perilous, even for experienced investigators. In the days following the incident, paranormal enthusiasts continued to report unusual occurrences near the engine room corridor. Lights flickered, shadows seemed to move independently of any source, and whispers were heard by late-night staff. The area where Claire vanished is now approached with caution, and guides stress the importance of staying with the group and not wandering alone. Her disappearance serves as a stark warning that the Queen Mary is not merely a historical monument, but a place where past and present can collide in chilling, inexplicable ways. Claire Reynolds' fate remains unknown. Her case continues to be investigated, But the haunting presence within the Queen Mary suggests that her disappearance may never be fully explained. Visitors continue to explore the ship, drawn to its beauty and history, yet aware that the ghostly corridors, shadowed corners, and lingering spirits are reminders of a past that refuses to rest. The engine room corridor, in particular, stands as a silent testament to the ship's haunted legacy, a place where the living can encounter the echoes of the past, sometimes with consequences that cannot be undone. The Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, is widely recognized not only for its grand architecture and scenic mountain views, but also for its enduring reputation as one of America's most haunted hotels. Built in 1909 by F.O. Stanley, the hotel's opulent design and historic significance attract countless visitors, many drawn by its connection to the paranormal. Over the decades, the Stanley has been the site of numerous ghost stories, from flickering lights and mysterious footsteps to cold spots and disembodied voices. Its most famous claim to fame came in 1974, when Stephen King visited the hotel and used it as inspiration for his novel, The Shining, cementing its reputation as a place where the living and the dead seem to brush against one another. In the summer of 2025, a man named Daniel Harper traveled to Estes Park specifically to experience the Stanley Hotel firsthand. A writer and paranormal enthusiast, Daniel had long been captivated by tales of spectral activity and historical haunting. He arrived during a weekend when the hotel was offering a special evening tour of its historic rooms, including the grand ballroom, the fifth-floor corridors, and the original dining halls. Daniel purchased his ticket and joined the small group of guests eager to explore the legendary hotel after dark. The tour began with a historical overview of the hotel's construction and notable events. Guides pointed out rooms long associated with strange occurrences, including the infamous room 217, where guests had reported hearing ghostly voices and footsteps in the dead of night. As the group moved through the dimly lit corridors, Daniel carefully took photographs and notes, fascinated by the hotel's elaborate woodwork, crystal chandeliers, and the faint, eerie hum that seemed to emanate from the old walls. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, and many guests whispered nervously as they followed the guide. As the tours reached the ballroom, the largest and most ornate room in the hotel, Daniel lingered behind the group. Witnesses later described hearing faint, echoing laughter that seemed to come from nowhere, a cold draft sweeping through the expansive space, and the occasional flicker of candlelight, despite the absence of open flames. Daniel appeared intrigued rather than alarmed, moving toward the center of the ballroom to inspect its intricate detailing and a large, polished dance floor. Moments later, Daniel vanished. The last person to see him was the tour guide, who recalled that he had entered the room alone to examine a side panel near one of the grand windows. When the group regrouped to move to the next section, Daniel was gone. Calls for him echoed through the vast room, but only the hotel's characteristic creaks and groans answered. Staff immediately conducted a thorough search of the ballroom, the adjoining corridors, and the stairwells, but found no trace of him. His personal belongings, wallet, keys, and camera, were left on a nearby table, untouched. Only his ticket stub remained on the polished floor, a small testament that he had been there at all. Security footage from cameras positioned near the ballroom provided a haunting glimpse into the final moments before Daniel's disappearance. The video showed him entering the room and standing near the center for several minutes. Shadows in the footage appeared to flicker unnaturally, and a sudden, unexplained blur passed across the floor where he had been standing. By the time the cameras captured the next frame, Daniel was gone, leaving the ballroom empty and silent. Hotel staff described the scene as eerily quiet, with a lingering chill that seemed to press against anyone who entered afterward. Guests and employees reported unusual occurrences during the days following the disappearance. Some heard faint whispers and disembodied footsteps in the ballroom and the corridors leading from it. Others described cold drafts that moved in unexpected directions, as if guided by an unseen force. A few claimed to see shadowy figures drifting near the windows or at the edges of their vision, vanishing when directly observed. Investigators suggest that the hotel's rich history, coupled with its documented paranormal activity, may contribute to such phenomena, although Daniel's complete disappearance remains unexplained. Paranormal experts who visited the Stanley Hotel after the incident noted that the ballroom has long been associated with unexplained phenomena. Cold spots, sudden temperature drops, and faint spectral sounds have been reported for decades. Some suggest that the energy of past events, the dances, celebrations, and tragedies that occurred over a century has imprinted itself on the room, creating residual hauntings or even more active, unpredictable manifestations. Others speculate that certain areas of the hotel act as thin spots, places where the boundary between the living and the spectral world is unusually fragile. Daniel's disappearance may represent a terrifying example of such a thin spot in action. The local authorities conducted extensive searches of the hotel and surrounding grounds, including the gardens and nearby streets. Despite these efforts, no physical trace of Daniel Harper was ever found. His disappearance has since been cataloged as one of the most baffling cases in the hotel's long history. Guides caution visitors, especially those attending evening tours, to stay with the group and remain aware of their surroundings. The hotel has continued its paranormal tours, but Daniel's story is now part of the lore, a chilling reminder of the risks associated with wandering alone in areas steeped in mysterious history. Daniel Harper's fate remains unknown, and the ballroom where he vanished continues to exude an unsettling energy. Visitors occasionally report feeling an unseen presence, hearing faint laughter, or sensing sudden cold drafts in the expansive room. The Stanley Hotel endures as both a historical landmark and a haunted destination, where the past is never fully at rest. Daniel's disappearance has become a sobering addition to the hotel's long list of spectral tales, reminding guests that some spirits may not merely linger, they may reach beyond the veil, altering the world of the living in ways that defy explanation. The Stanley Hotel, with its grand architecture and storied past, continues to draw visitors from across the country. Its history of opulence, tragedy, and ghostly sightings ensures that the hotel remains a place where reality and the supernatural intertwine. The tale of Daniel Harper, the man who vanished in the ballroom, has become an enduring legend, whispered among guests and staff alike. His ticket stub, left behind on the polished floor, is a silent testament to his presence and a haunting reminder that some mysteries of the Stanley Hotel may never be solved. Big Brook Haunted Forest, located in rural New Jersey, has long been shrouded in tales of eerie occurrences and unexplained phenomena. Local legend tells of the forest as a place where travelers lose their way, hear voices with no visible source, and sometimes fail to return at all. Over the decades, hikers, hunters, and campers have reported strange sounds, sudden mists, shadowy figures, and unexplainable cold spots. The forest, dense with towering oaks and thick underbrush, creates natural disorientation, and combined with its dark folklore, it has become a magnet for paranormal enthusiasts and thrill-seekers alike. In the summer of 2024, a group of 5 college friends decided to venture into Big Brook Haunted Forest for a weekend camping trip. The group, curious about the forest's reputation, intended to combine hiking, overnight camping, and an exploration of local ghost lore. They arrived in the late afternoon, carrying tents, backpacks, and basic supplies. The canopy overhead was thick, casting long shadows even in daylight, and the forest floor was strewn with fallen leaves and gnarled roots. While the atmosphere was picturesque, the group could not shake a subtle unease, as if the woods themselves were aware of their presence. As evening fell, the campers set up their tents near a clearing around a small fire pit they had constructed. The forest grew colder and darker than expected, with a mist creeping between the trees that seemed unnatural in its density. Around midnight, the first strange sounds began. Soft, almost imperceptible whispers floated through the camp. The voices were low, unintelligible, yet insistent, seeming to come from different directions simultaneously. The campers initially dismissed the sounds as wind rustling through branches or the echoes of distant animals, yet the whispers grew louder, and the air around them felt unnaturally cold, causing visible frost on the ground despite the season's warmth. Around 1:30 a.m., two members of the group, Michael and Sarah, stepped away from the campfire to investigate the origin of the whispers. They carried flashlights and promised to return quickly. Minutes passed, but they did not come back. The remaining three friends called out, their voices swallowed by the dense trees. The forest, already eerie in its silence, seemed to close in around them. When the three approached the area where Michael and Sarah had gone, all they found were the two flashlights lying on the forest floor, still switched on, but pointing in random directions. No footprints, broken branches, or signs of struggle were visible. By morning, the remaining campers were frantic. The sun's rays barely penetrated the thick canopy, and visibility remained limited. Search parties were organized, bringing local authorities, volunteers, and canine units into the forest. Teams combed the surrounding trails, riverbeds, and abandoned logging roads, calling the missing campers names, but there was no response. Every so-called lead ended at thin air. The only clues were scattered camping gear, backpacks, a half-filled water bottle, and a tent flap left swinging in the wind. Michael and Sarah seemed to have vanished entirely. Witnesses and experts who later examined the site noted that the forest had a history of disappearances dating back decades. Many reports described similar scenarios: hikers hearing whispers or footsteps in the night, feeling sudden cold drafts, or noticing shadows that appeared and vanished without explanation. Some said the forest is haunted by a malevolent entity that preys on those who wander alone after dark, while others theorize that the area may contain natural anomalies that confuse human perception, leading to disorientation and mysterious vanishing. Several paranormal investigators visited Big Brook Haunted Forest after the incident. They documented cold spots where the missing campers were last seen and reported capturing unexplained sounds on audio recorders, including faint whispers, repeating names or phrases such as "come with us" and "Dan T. leave." Infrared cameras revealed shadows moving between trees, though the forest was otherwise empty. Investigators noted that the energy in the forest appeared to concentrate around specific locations, particularly near clearings and old paths where travelers frequently stop, suggesting that some residual or intelligent force might linger there. Local authorities struggled to explain the disappearances. There were no signs of foul play, natural hazards were ruled out, and the forest's dense terrain did not contain caves or sinkholes capable of swallowing adults without a trace. Family members and friends continued to hope for some resolution. Yet the case has remained unsolved, leaving a lasting sense of mystery and fear surrounding the forest. Tourists and thrill seekers now approach the area with caution, aware that the woods carry a history that cannot be ignored. Since the event, Big Brook Haunted Forest has attracted increased attention from paranormal enthusiasts, documentary crews, and amateur explorers, all drawn to the chilling story of Michael and Sarah. Guides leading nighttime tours stress the importance of staying in groups, avoiding wandering into the mist, and paying attention to environmental cues. Visitors report hearing whispers and seeing shadowy figures even during daylight hours, though the incidents are far less frequent. The story of the missing campers has become a central legend in the area, often recounted alongside historical accounts of vanished hikers, unexplained lights, and the persistent aura of malevolence that seems to hang over the forest. The fate of Michael and Sarah remains unknown. Their disappearance has become a cautionary tale, a reminder that some places in the world carry an energy that defies explanation. The gear left behind in the clearing serves as silent evidence of their presence and the mysterious forces at work within the forest. Big Brook Haunted Forest endures as a location where the natural and supernatural intertwine, a place where the whispers in the night may be more than just a wind through the trees. Visitors continue to explore, but most do so with a heightened sense of vigilance, aware that the forest may not willingly release those who enter after dark. Even years later, hikers and campers occasionally report fleeting shadows, cold spots, or whispers that vanish as quickly as they appear. The story of the vanished campers has cemented Big Brook Haunted Forest's reputation as one of New Jersey's most enigmatic and terrifying locations, a place where the line between the living and the unseen world remains dangerously thin. The Driscoll Hotel in Austin, Texas, is one of the state's most iconic landmarks. Known for its Romanesque architecture, luxurious interiors, and a rich history dating back to 1886. Beyond its grandeur, the hotel has long been famous for its paranormal activity. Stories of ghostly figures, unexplained sounds, and strange occurrences have been reported for over a century, making it a magnet for ghost enthusiasts and curious visitors alike. The hotel's reputation as a haunted destination stems from numerous accounts, ranging from shadowy figures in the halls to apparitions seen in the grand ballroom, and occasional mysterious cold spots felt by unsuspecting guests. In the summer of 2025, a woman named Emily Thompson traveled to Austin to experience the hotel firsthand. A historian and photography enthusiast, Emily was particularly interested in documenting the hotel's historic architecture, including its ornate lobby and the opulent Driscoll Ballroom. She arrived during a busy weekend when tourists and ghost seekers alike were exploring the hotel's storied halls. Armed with her camera, Emily moved through the lobby, photographing the intricately carved woodwork, the marble floors, and the glimmering chandeliers. The atmosphere was lively, yet carried an undercurrent of the hotel's long history, making her experience both thrilling and slightly unnerving. After spending time in the lobby, Emily proceeded to photograph the grand ballroom. This room, with its vaulted ceilings, polished floors, and glittering chandeliers, has long been associated with unexplained phenomena. Guests have reported seeing fleeting figures dancing in the shadows, hearing music when no band is present, and feeling sudden chills that seem to emanate from the walls themselves. Emily carefully captured multiple angles of the room, taking care to preserve its historic elegance in her photographs. She appeared focused, moving from one corner to another, occasionally pausing to adjust her camera settings. Witnesses later described that Emily seemed to linger longer than expected, near the center of the ballroom. One hotel employee recalled seeing her raise her camera and take several photographs of the ceiling and chandeliers. Moments later, she vanished. Security cameras positioned in the lobby and hallway captured only a fleeting shadow where she had been standing. The footage showed her entering the room, lifting her camera, and then almost instantaneously, there was nothing. No movement toward any exit, no signs of struggle, nothing to suggest how she had disappeared. Her camera, purse, and personal belongings were left on the floor where she had last been seen, a chilling testament to her sudden disappearance. Hotel staff immediately began searching the surrounding areas. They combed the lobby, hallways, nearby guest rooms, and service areas. Authorities were called, and an organized search of the hotel and adjacent streets commenced. Despite extensive efforts, no trace of Emily was ever found. There were no footprints leading away from the ballroom, no evidence of abduction, and no clues in the building's ventilation or stairwells. Her disappearance baffled law enforcement, hotel staff, and witnesses alike, fueling rumors that something beyond the natural world might have been involved. Paranormal investigators were called to the Driscoll Hotel following Emily's disappearance. They noted that the ballroom has a long history of ghostly activity. Many reports describe sudden cold spots, unexplained flickering lights, and the sensation of being watched. Audio recordings often capture whispers or faint music, even in the absence of any source. Investigators speculated that the hotel may have residual energies lingering from its long history, or that certain areas act as thin spots where the boundary between the living and spiritual worlds is fragile. Emily's disappearance, they suggested, might be a rare and extreme manifestation of this phenomenon. Guests who had been in the hotel that weekend reported hearing faint echoes of footsteps in empty corridors and catching glimpses of shadows out of the corner of their eyes. Some claimed that when walking near the ballroom where Emily vanished, they felt sudden chills and a sensation of unseen eyes upon them. Others described hearing whispers that seemed to say her name, though no one was nearby. The combination of these accounts added to the hotel's reputation for hosting unexplained activity and reinforced the eerie narrative surrounding Emily's disappearance. Law enforcement and the hotel's management conducted thorough investigations. Cameras, employee logs, and witness statements were all examined. Yet there were no leads to explain how a fully grown woman could vanish from a populated area without anyone noticing her exit or any trace being left behind. Families and friends held out hope that she might be found. Yet as weeks turned into months, the trail grew colder. Emily Thompson became another name added to the Driscoll Hotel's long list of unexplained occurrences. Her disappearance cementing the hotel's reputation as a site where the veil between the ordinary and the supernatural might be perilously thin. The Driscoll Hotel continues to operate as both a luxury destination and a historic landmark. Its grand architecture, history, and the mystery surrounding Emily's disappearance draw visitors from across the country. Tour guides often recount her story, along with other tales of spectral activities, emphasizing the importance of remaining aware of the environment and traveling in groups during nighttime tours. Guests report feeling sudden cold drafts, hearing whispers, or seeing fleeting shadows, particularly near the ballroom and lobby, areas tied to Emily's final moments. Emily's disappearance remains unsolved, a chilling reminder that even in the presence of many witnesses, strange and unexplainable phenomena can occur. The Driscoll Hotel endures as a place where history, legend, and the supernatural intertwine. Emily's camera, purse, and the fleeting shadow caught on security footage remain silent witnesses to a moment that continues to haunt the hotel and all who enter its grand, mysterious halls. Visitors continue to photograph tours and explore, yet the story of the woman who vanished in the ballroom serves as a somber reminder. Some places carry energies that cannot be explained, and some disappearances leave mysteries that defy all rational explanation. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, located in Weston, West Virginia, is one of the largest and most infamous psychiatric hospitals in the United States. Built in the mid-1800s, the sprawling structure housed thousands of patients over its long history, often under grim conditions. Stories of mistreatment, overcrowding, and untimely deaths have contributed to the asylum's reputation as one of the most haunted locations in the country. Visitors, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts have long been drawn to the site, intrigued by reports of ghostly figures, sudden cold spots, strange noises, and unexplained movements within the massive stone walls. Nighttime tours and private investigations are common, as people hope to experience firsthand the residual energy said to linger in the building's halls. In the fall of 2024, a group of high school students interested in history and the paranormal organized a nighttime investigation of the asylum. Among them was 17-year-old Hannah Morrison, an adventurous and curious teen fascinated by abandoned structures and ghost lore. The group entered the asylum just after dusk, equipped with flashlights, cameras, and audio recorders, determined to explore areas of the building that were known for unusual activity. The West Wing, in particular, had a long history of paranormal reports, including sightings of shadowy figures, disembodied voices, and inexplicable sounds of footsteps echoing through empty corridors. The teens proceeded cautiously, their flashlights illuminating peeling paint, broken doors, and rusted metal grates. The air was heavy and cold, carrying the faint scent of decay and mildew. Whispers seemed to drift from distant hallways, though the group initially dismissed them as the building settling or the wind whistling through broken windows. Hannah led part of the group toward the West Wing, drawn by reports of a supposedly haunted operating theater and patient rooms left untouched for decades. The walls there were thick, the floors uneven, and the shadows cast by the flickering flashlight beams created the illusion of movement at every turn. As the group explored, they noticed that Hannah had wandered slightly ahead. Fascinated by a narrow hallway leading deeper into the wing, she paused at several rooms, photographing old signage and furniture. Her friends called out to her periodically, but the building's acoustics distorted their voices, making it difficult to gauge distance or direction. Minutes passed, and when the group turned to catch up, Hannah was no longer visible. At first, her friends assumed she had stepped aside or moved into a side room. They searched the immediate corridor, calling her name repeatedly. The sound of their voices echoed off the stone walls, but there was no response. One of the teens noticed Hannah's flashlight lying on the floor near the entrance to a long hallway. It was still on, casting a dim glow across the dusty tiles. Panic began to set in as the realization grew that Hannah was missing. The group searched room by room, checking closets, stairwells, and adjacent corridors, but there were no signs of her, no footprints, no displaced objects, nothing to suggest where she might have gone. The teens contacted local authorities immediately. Police and trained search teams arrived, combing the asylum with flashlights, K9 units, and thermal imaging cameras. Despite extensive efforts, no trace of Hannah was found. The asylum's west wing, with its labyrinthine corridors, towering ceilings, and numerous locked rooms, made the search exceedingly difficult. Every investigation returned empty, save for the abandoned flashlight, which remained as the only tangible evidence of her presence. Paranormal investigators, who later examined the asylum, noted that the West Wing had long been associated with intense spectral activity. Previous visitors reported cold spots that seemed to follow them, disembodied voices calling names, and shadow figures darting in and out of sight. Others theorized that certain areas of the asylum might act as focal points for spiritual activity, capable of manifesting sensory experiences that feel entirely real, including the perception of someone vanishing. Eyewitness accounts and recordings captured during later investigations added to the eerie reputation of the asylum. Audio devices picked up faint whispers that seemed to call Hannah's name, though no one else was present. Infrared cameras recorded fleeting shadows moving through the halls, as if unseen figures were passing in and out of the walls. Paranormal experts speculated that whatever energy exists within the asylum may have been particularly strong that night, coinciding with Hannah's disappearance. For the family and friends of Hannah Morrison, the loss was devastating. They clung to hope that she might be found. Yet as days turned into weeks, the trail grew colder. Authorities treated the case as a missing person investigation, but the building's complex structure and the absence of any physical evidence made it nearly impossible to determine her fate. Local residents and frequent visitors to the asylum became more cautious, warning thrill seekers of the building's dangers. The story of Hannah's disappearance quickly became part of the broader legend surrounding the asylum, a modern addition to the centuries-old history of mystery, fear, and unexplained occurrences within its walls. Today, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum continues to attract visitors, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts. Tours emphasize both the building's architectural significance and its haunted history, often recounting Hannah Morrison's disappearance as a stark reminder of the asylum's lingering presence of the unknown. Guests report chills in the West Wing, sudden feelings of being watched, and, occasionally, the faint sound of a flashlight tapping across the floor, though no one is there to hold it. Hannah's flashlight remains a silent testament to her presence and sudden disappearance, a small object that tells a story of mystery and fear. The West Wing of the asylum remains a place where history, tragedy, and possibly otherworldly forces converge. Visitors are advised to exercise caution, remain in groups, and respect the building's dark past. Yet the legend of the teenager lost in the West Wing endures, haunting the corridors and inspiring countless stories as the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum continues to guard its secrets and its restless spirits, waiting quietly for those who dare to enter after dark. The Villisca Axe Murder House, located in Villisca, Iowa, is one of the most infamous haunted locations in the United States. Built in 1910, the house became the site of a gruesome massacre in 1912, when 8 members of the Moore family and 2 visiting children were brutally killed with an axe. Despite numerous investigations and the passage of more than a century, the house continues to be a magnet for paranormal enthusiasts, historians, and thrill seekers drawn to its dark history and the unexplained phenomena reported there. In the summer of 2024, a group of tourists visited the historic home for an evening tour. Among them was 28-year-old Michael Hayes, a local photographer with a keen interest in haunted locations. Michael had explored numerous supposedly haunted sites, documenting experiences with both still photography and video. On that evening, the house was quieter than usual. Most of the tour groups had already left, and only a small number of visitors remained to walk the hallways and hear the chilling stories associated with the murders. As the tour guide recounted the events of that fateful night, Michael moved silently from room to room, photographing furniture, the staircase, and the remnants of early 20th century life preserved in the house. When the group reached the attic, a narrow, dimly lit space said to be particularly active, Michael asked if he could explore it alone briefly to capture some specific angles for his photography. The guide reluctantly agreed, warning him that the attic had a reputation for unusual activity and advising him to stay cautious. Michael ascended the steep, creaking stairs into the attic. The wooden floorboards groaned beneath his weight, and his flashlight revealed the cobwebbed corners and old trunks that lined the walls. A faint chill hung in the air, much colder than the rest of the house, and the smell of dust and mildew seemed stronger here. He began taking photos, his camera flashing briefly in the darkness, highlighting the eerie details of the space: an old rocking chair, a cracked mirror, and several trunks that had not been opened in decades. Minutes passed, and the guide and the remaining group waited outside the attic, expecting Michael to return soon. When he did not emerge after several minutes, concern grew. The guide called his name, the sound echoing down the narrow staircase, but there was no response. The group carefully climbed the stairs, checking the corners of the attic and behind furniture, but Michael was nowhere to be found. There were no signs of a struggle, no dropped belongings, not even the faintest indication of where he had gone. His camera, however, was still on the floor, its lens pointed toward the corner of the attic where shadows seemed to linger. Authorities were notified immediately, and local police conducted an extensive search of the house and surrounding property. Every room, closet, and crawl space was checked, but Michael had seemingly vanished into thin air. Search dogs could not pick up a scent trail, and surveillance footage from the exterior showed no suspicious activity. Paranormal investigators, who later examined the house, noted that the attic and upper floors were historically the most active areas, frequently associated with cold spots, shadowy figures, and unexplained noises. Some suggested that residual energy from the violent events of 1912 might still linger, imprinting traumatic occurrences onto the environment. Interviews with witnesses and previous visitors revealed a pattern of unexplained activity in the attic. Guests reported hearing distant screams, even when the house was empty, and seeing dark shapes move just out of the corner of their eyes. Some described feeling sudden chills or the sensation of being watched, and multiple accounts mentioned lights flickering or objects shifting without cause. Paranormal experts speculated that Michael might have encountered a particularly strong concentration of spiritual energy, capable of creating disorientation or, in rare cases, seemingly removing someone from the physical plane entirely. In the weeks following Michael's disappearance, investigators returned to the house with more sophisticated equipment, including infrared cameras, motion sensors, and audio recorders. The attic consistently registered unusual readings, inexplicable cold spots, faint whispers captured on electronic voice phenomenon devices, and shadowy shapes that appeared briefly on camera before vanishing. While no one could confirm exactly what had happened to Michael, the evidence suggested that the attic remained a hotspot of intense paranormal activity. The family of Michael Hayes, devastated by his sudden disappearance, struggled to understand what had occurred. Local historians and paranormal researchers attempted to provide explanations, ranging from the residual energy of the murders to the possibility of a poltergeist or otherworldly entity. Tour guides and past visitors offered similar accounts, reinforcing the house's reputation as one of the most haunted locations in Iowa. The tragic history of the Moore family, combined with the inexplicable events experienced by those who entered the house, created a sense of both fascination and dread for all who visited. Today, the Valeska Axe Murder House remains a site of mystery and warning. Visitors continue to report strange phenomena, particularly in the attic, including cold drafts, unexplained footsteps, and fleeting shadowy figures. Michael Hayes' disappearance has become part of the lore of the house, a modern example of how the historic site continues to challenge explanations and elicit fear. The attic stands as a silent reminder of both the tragic past and the continuing presence of the unknown. The story of Michael Hayes serves as a chilling testament to the house's power to unsettle, confuse, and perhaps even claim those who enter its most active spaces. While the house is open for tours and investigations, guides caution visitors to remain vigilant. Respect the space and never venture alone into areas known for heightened paranormal activity. The Villisca Axe Murder House endures as a site where history, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena converge, leaving an indelible mark on all who step inside. Shadows linger, whispers echo, and the question of what truly lies in the attic remains unanswered, making the house a place of fascination, fear, and unending mystery. The Gettysburg Battlefield in Pennsylvania is not only a site of immense historical significance, but also one of the most haunted locations in the United States. The fields where Union and Confederate soldiers clashed during the Civil War continue to resonate with the echoes of the past. Tourists, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts alike visit the site, drawn both by its historical weight and its reputation for unexplained phenomena. Shadows on the battlefield, disembodied voices, and sudden drops in temperature have long been reported, making the area a magnet for those who seek encounters with the supernatural. In the fall of 2024, a professional photographer named Daniel Mercer arrived at Gettysburg with the intent of capturing the haunting beauty of the battlefield at dusk. Daniel had a fascination with locations steeped in history, particularly those with eerie reputations. He carried a high-resolution DSLR camera, multiple lenses, and a tripod, determined to capture both the scenic landscapes and any unusual occurrences that might manifest as darkness fell over the rolling hills. Daniel began his work near the Soldiers' National Cemetery, photographing the rows of gravestones as the sun dipped behind the horizon. He moved from monument to monument, documenting the terrain with meticulous care. As twilight deepened, Daniel noticed the air growing colder, and a faint mist began to form among the trees bordering the woods at the edge of the battlefield. He felt a subtle tension in the atmosphere, a sensation that many visitors and paranormal investigators have described when the spirits of fallen soldiers are said to linger. While adjusting his camera to capture the mist weaving through the trees, Daniel saw something that drew his attention deeper into the wooded area. A fleeting movement, a shape that seemed slightly darker than the surrounding shadows, caught his eye. Curiosity and instinct led him to walk toward the figure, his camera slung around his neck, ready to document whatever he encountered. Witnesses later described seeing him step toward the edge of the forest, disappearing from sight as he moved among the dense trees. By the time other visitors noticed his absence, Daniel was already gone. Calls for him went unanswered, and the usual bustling atmosphere of tourists slowly searching the battlefield at dusk turned into a tense and anxious search. Rangers and volunteers combed the area, shining flashlights into the woods and calling his name, but there was no response. The mist seemed to thicken as if swallowing the space where he had vanished. No footprints were found beyond the edge of the clearing, and the forest floor appeared undisturbed. The following morning, Daniel's camera was discovered near the base of a large oak tree at the border of the woods. It was still operational, its lens pointed toward the empty forest. Upon reviewing the footage, investigators and his colleagues were met with an unnerving scene. The camera recorded only the swaying trees, the rustling leaves, and the low murmur of the wind. Occasionally, faint whispers could be heard, indistinct words that seemed to rise and fall in cadence with the breeze, almost like distant voices calling from another time. There was no sign of Daniel, no movement captured, and no indication that he had stepped out of frame. Search efforts extended for days, involving local law enforcement, search and rescue teams, and volunteers familiar with the terrain. Despite covering every trail, clearing, and wooded section, Daniel Mercer was never found. Authorities examined the surrounding area for possible hazards, and while the terrain is uneven and dense in places, there were no signs of an accident, and the disappearance offered no rational explanation. Rangers familiar with the site remarked that the woods Daniel had entered were historically significant, often cited in folklore, and reports of unexplained activity, including disembodied footsteps, shadowy figures, and sudden temperature drops. Paranormal investigators later reviewed the footage and noted anomalies in the audio, suggesting the whispers might not have been a trick of the wind. Some speculated that the voices could be residual energy from soldiers who perished during the battle, their last moments etched into the land in a way that occasionally manifests to the living. The forest itself has long been considered a liminal space, a threshold between the world of the living and the echoes of history. Where the boundary between the present and the past seems too thin, visitors to Gettysburg often recount a feeling of being watched, an inexplicable chill, or glimpses of shadowy figures among the trees. Some speak of sudden disorientation, as though the battlefield itself rearranges around them. Daniel's disappearance added a modern layer to the ongoing narrative of the battlefield's supernatural presence. His camera remains a chilling artifact, a silent witness capturing only the ambient wind and whispers, providing proof that something beyond understanding lingered in that wooded section. The story of Daniel Mercer has become part of Gettysburg's haunted lore, a cautionary tale for those venturing into the battlefield's more secluded areas. Rangers and guides now caution visitors, emphasizing the importance of staying in groups and respecting the historical spaces, particularly near the wooded areas where past and present seem to collide. Despite these warnings, the allure of the unknown continues to draw thrill-seekers, historians, and photographers hoping to capture evidence of the paranormal. Daniel's disappearance remains unexplained, leaving only his camera, the faint whispers in the trees, and a haunting emptiness in the place where he was last seen. Visitors and investigators alike reflect on the power of Gettysburg's history, the enduring presence of the past, and the unsettling possibility that some souls may never leave the fields where their lives were lost. Shadows move among the trees, the wind carries distant murmurs, and the question of what truly happened to Daniel Mercer remains unanswered, cementing his story as one of the most mysterious vanishings in the annals of paranormal history at Gettysburg. Devil's Den, in Florida. A natural underground spring known for its crystal-clear waters and prehistoric origins, has long been a destination for hikers, divers, and nature enthusiasts. The sun-drenched trails and unique cavern entrances make it a popular site for exploration. But beneath its serene surface lies a history steeped in mystery and eerie folklore. Locals speak of strange happenings, disappearing visitors, and unexplained sounds echoing through the cavernous spaces, warning travelers that the den is not just a natural wonder. It may also be a place where the normal rules of reality shift. In the summer of 2023, a hiker named Lucas Bennett set out to explore the Devil's Den trails. Lucas was an experienced outdoorsman, familiar with remote and challenging terrains. He carried only a backpack with essentials, a flashlight, and a camera to document the unique geological formations he expected to find. He began his hike along the main trail, passing other visitors and noting the steep descent toward the cavern entrance. The air was unusually cool for a Florida summer, and a low, almost imperceptible hum seemed to emanate from the earth beneath his feet, a sound that Lucas at first attributed to the wind passing through the limestone formations. As Lucas approached the trail that led directly to the underground section of the den, he noticed the vegetation growing denser, the trees bending toward the path as if guiding or warning him. The sunlight dimmed, and the temperature dropped noticeably, giving the area a shadowed, almost otherworldly quality. He carefully followed the trail into a narrow opening leading downward, where the limestone walls closed around him. The entrance to the spring itself was partially submerged, revealing waters that glimmered with an unnatural clarity. Lucas paused to photograph the scene, unaware that the moment would mark the last known sighting of him. Visitors and locals later recounted that no one had seen Lucas emerge from the underground trail. Panic arose when he failed to return to the parking area or answer calls from his friends who had been exploring nearby. Search parties were immediately organized, including local law enforcement, park rangers, and volunteers familiar with the terrain. Teams scoured the trails, the surrounding forests, and the water-filled caverns, but their efforts yielded little. The most notable findings were empty footprints leading to the entrance of the underground section and foliage that had been disturbed, as though someone or something had brushed past. There were no other signs of Lucas, no dropped belongings, no evidence of injury, and no logical explanation for his sudden disappearance. Paranormal investigators were later called to examine the area, intrigued by the peculiar circumstances surrounding Lucas's vanishing. They noted that the subterranean caverns of Devil's Den have long been associated with unexplained activity. Some claim that the unique limestone formations and the water's reflective surface create an environment where electromagnetic anomalies occur, potentially causing hallucinations or disorientation. Others suggested that entities or residual energies may inhabit the natural caverns, preying on those who venture too deep or alone. Reports from divers and hikers over the years describe hearing voices, seeing shadowy figures, and sensing cold drafts where none should exist. The investigators examined Lucas's last known path, observing the undisturbed but oddly aligned footprints and the subtle indentations in the limestone that suggested movement deeper into the cavern than a human could easily navigate alone. Some theorized that the energy within the den is residual from prehistoric times linked to the ancient fossils found in the limestone, or that the spring itself acts as a liminal space, a threshold between the natural world and something beyond comprehension. Whispers of a guardian spirit or a sentient force dwelling in the underground caverns were discussed, a presence that could manipulate the environment or influence perception. Witnesses who had explored the den previously reported feeling watched or sensing sudden changes in temperature near the cavern entrance. Several claimed to have heard footsteps echoing through empty tunnels or whispers that seemed to guide them along specific paths. Divers in the underwater passages occasionally reported glimpses of shadowy forms darting through the murky depths, moving with purpose but never fully visible. These anecdotal accounts, combined with Lucas's mysterious disappearance, reinforced the idea that Devil's Den may not be entirely safe for solitary exploration, despite its popularity and natural allure. The official investigation concluded that Lucas Bennett's disappearance could not be explained by natural causes alone. Search efforts eventually ended, with the hiker officially listed as missing. His story became part of local legend, a modern warning to anyone daring to explore the den's subterranean trails alone. Visitors continued to report strange sensations, and the narrative of a vanished hiker who entered the underground path has only amplified the site's reputation for unexplained phenomena. Paranormal experts advise caution when visiting Devil's Den, suggesting that while the visible trails and sparkling spring are inviting, the caverns may conceal forces beyond the natural world. The combination of tight passages, unusual acoustics, and the dense, cool underground air could create experiences that defy explanation or even put individuals at risk. Despite warnings, thrill seekers continue to enter the caverns, hoping for a glimpse of the extraordinary or perhaps to encounter what others have never returned from. Lucas Bennett's disappearance at Devil's Den remains unresolved, a haunting reminder of the dangers and mysteries lurking beneath the Earth's surface. Empty footprints, disturbed foliage, and the silent underground waters stand as evidence of a presence that may be beyond human understanding. Whether the hiker fell victim to natural hazards, disorientation, or an unseen entity, the story has cemented the den as a place where the ordinary and the supernatural collide, leaving those who visit with a sense of awe, a deep, lingering unease. The Queen Mary, permanently docked in Long Beach, California, has long been celebrated as a marvel of maritime engineering, but it is equally infamous for its paranormal activity. Built in the 1930s, the ship served as a luxury liner before being converted into a troop transport during World War II. Over the decades, numerous reports of ghostly sightings, mysterious footsteps, and strange noises have given it a reputation as one of the most haunted locations in the United States. Among the many tales of the ship's supernatural residents, One incident stands out as particularly chilling: a teenage visitor vanishing without a trace during a guided ghost tour. In the summer of 2024, a group of tourists signed up for the Queen Mary's nighttime paranormal tour. The tour is designed to take visitors through the ship's most haunted areas, including the first-class cabins, the engine room, and the lower decks, where several deaths have been documented over the ship's long history. Among the group was 16-year-old Emily Hartman, a teenager with a keen interest in ghost stories and the supernatural. She was eager to explore the shadowy halls and hear the guides recount the ship's dark past. The tour began as usual, with guides leading the group through the dimly lit corridors, recounting tales of crew members who perished at sea, mysterious drownings, and apparitions that continued to linger aboard the ship. Guests were encouraged to take photos and videos, and several cameras recorded odd phenomena: doors opening on their own, lights flickering, and shadows moving along walls. The atmosphere was tense yet thrilling, with the creaking of the ship and the distant hum of the harbor amplifying every sound. As the group approached the area near the engine room, Emily lingered slightly behind the others. Witnesses later reported seeing her step into a narrow corridor adjacent to the machinery, a section of the ship less traveled and notoriously dark. Moments later, she was no longer visible, and when the tour guide called out, there was no response. The group initially assumed she had walked ahead, but as they advanced, it became clear that Emily had disappeared. Panic set in when no trace of her could be found, and the remaining visitors were quickly escorted to the upper decks, while security was alerted. Security cameras positioned along the lower decks later provided unsettling footage. The recordings showed shadows flickering in the corridors, and a faint, humanoid figure moving across the engine room entrance. The figure seemed to vanish and reappear at irregular intervals, and while it resembled a person, it did not behave like one walking normally. Investigators noted that the lighting and angles made it impossible to determine if it was Emily or a paranormal manifestation. Nothing in the footage indicated her leaving the area, and no one else had access to the corridors at that time. Tourists who were present during the incident reported a variety of unsettling experiences. Some claimed to hear faint footsteps echoing through the corridor even after being escorted away, while others described cold drafts sweeping through areas of the ship that were otherwise still. A few visitors insisted they saw fleeting shadows moving just out of the corner of their eyes, vanishing when they turned their heads. These first-hand accounts mirrored decades of similar reports from the Queen Mary, reinforcing the ship's eerie reputation. Paranormal investigators were called in to examine the incident. Their initial findings indicated unusual electromagnetic readings in the engine room corridor and the adjacent decks. EVP, electronic voice phenomenon recordings, captured faint whispers that could be interpreted as calling a name, though clarity was limited by background noise. Investigators noted that this section of the ship has long been associated with high levels of reported activity, including apparitions of crew members and passengers who died tragically. Some theorized that the ship's long history of suffering and loss might create residual energy capable of interacting with the living. Theories about Emily's disappearance ranged from accidental injury or hiding in the ship's complex network of hallways to more supernatural explanations. The ship has a maze-like structure with hidden passages, maintenance rooms, and narrow service corridors that could easily disorient anyone unfamiliar with the layout. However, even after extensive searches over the next several days, no physical evidence of Emily was found. Her backpack, personal items, and shoes were left at the tour starting point, suggesting she had not simply wandered off. The Queen Mary's staff worked closely with local authorities and search teams, exploring every accessible space in the lower decks, engine rooms, and storage areas. Despite these efforts, no trace of Emily emerged. The official statement from the port authorities confirmed that she remained missing, and the case quickly drew national attention due to the ship's haunted reputation and the mysterious circumstances of her disappearance. Following the event, the Queen Mary continued to draw paranormal enthusiasts eager to explore its haunted corridors. Visitors report similar experiences: cold spots in the engine room, strange noises echoing through abandoned decks, and fleeting figures glimpsed in dark corners. While Emily's disappearance remains unsolved, her story has become a cautionary tale for those exploring the vessel, even in guided tours. The Queen Mary can prove unpredictable and dangerous. Some paranormal experts suggest that Emily may have encountered a residual spirit or been drawn into a pocket of energy unique to the ship's lower decks. Others maintain that her disappearance, while tragic, highlights a complex and unsettling environment aboard the Queen Mary. Where the line between the natural and supernatural often blurs, the haunting continues, with the faintest shadows and whispers, reminding all who enter that the ship carries memories of its past. Memories that may not always remain confined to history. Emily Hartman's case remains one of the Queen Mary's most mysterious and chilling incidents. The empty corridor where she vanished has become a place of trepidation for guides and visitors alike. Cameras continue to capture unexplained shadows, and guests speak of fleeting figures moving just beyond their vision. Whether Emily encountered a supernatural entity, became lost in the labyrinthine corridors, or something else entirely, her disappearance has cemented the ship's reputation as a location where the past lingers and the living can vanish without a trace. The Queen Mary stands as both a testament to maritime history and a reminder of the unknown. Its darkened hallways, hidden corridors, and mysterious energies ensure that those who step aboard may encounter more than history. They may encounter the lingering presence of spirits unwilling to move on. And perhaps, like Emily, find themselves part of the ship's ongoing story of mystery and the unexplained. Eastern State Penitentiary, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is renowned not just for its historic significance, but also for its long-standing reputation as one of the most haunted prisons in America. Established in 1829, the prison was designed to implement a revolutionary system of solitary confinement intended to reform inmates through isolation. Though innovative for its time, the system brought psychological strain and despair, with many prisoners reportedly succumbing to mental breakdowns, illness, and in some cases, suicide. Over the years, these tragic stories have fueled a sense of lingering energy, and countless visitors and staff have reported unusual phenomena, from disembodied voices to shadowy figures moving through the abandoned halls. Among these stories, one incident stands out for its sheer mystery: a tourist who vanished while exploring the prison's infamous isolation cells. In the summer of 2023, a group of tourists joined a guided tour of Eastern State Penitentiary. The penitentiary, while closed to regular incarceration, opens its gates to the public, offering a glimpse into its stark architecture and dark history. Visitors are warned that the prison's atmosphere can be unsettling. Its long corridors, iron-barred doors, and crumbling walls evoke a chilling sense of confinement. Among the group was 28-year-old Jonathan Miller, an amateur historian and photographer eager to capture the eerie ambience of the abandoned facility. Equipped with his camera and flashlight, Jonathan separated slightly from the group, drawn to the isolation cells that had long fascinated ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts. The isolation wing, known for its narrow corridors and single-occupancy cells, is infamous in prison lore. Each cell is designed to limit contact with others, with small windows allowing minimal light and air. The oppressive architecture was intended to enforce solitude, but over the decades, it became the site of extreme despair and psychological torment. Visitors and staff have reported cold drafts, the feeling of being watched, and echoes of whispered voices that cannot be traced to any living source. Despite these warnings, Jonathan insisted on exploring the cells alone, hoping to capture footage that might reveal the prison's haunted legacy. As the main tour group continued along the upper levels, Jonathan stepped into a side corridor leading to several long-abandoned isolation cells. The walls were worn and crumbling, the iron doors rusted and slightly ajar. According to witnesses, he paused in front of one particularly notorious cell, taking photographs and adjusting his flashlight. Moments later, he disappeared from view. The tour guide, noticing his absence, called out, but there was no response. When the group retraced their steps, Jonathan was nowhere to be found. Panic set in as the corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, echoing only the sound of their footsteps. Security cameras installed throughout the penitentiary later provided chilling evidence. Footage showed shadows flickering across the isolation corridor, moving in ways that did not correspond to any visible person. In some frames, Jonathan's flashlight beam appeared to drift, as though held by an unseen hand, then vanished entirely. The cameras captured subtle shifts in darkness and fleeting movements that suggested a presence, but no concrete image of Jonathan was ever recorded leaving the cells. The footage left investigators puzzled and the area eerily quiet and empty, amplifying the sense that something unexplainable had occurred. Visitors present that day described an intense feeling of dread within the isolation wing. Some reported hearing faint whispers echoing through the cell blocks, indistinct but undeniably human in tone. Others felt sudden cold spots, even in the otherwise stagnant summer air. A few claimed they saw fleeting shadows dart across the corridor, disappearing when they tried to focus on them. The testimonies painted a consistent picture of an environment charged with residual energy, as though the suffering of past inmates lingered. Aware of the living intruding upon its space, paranormal investigators were called in to examine the incident. Their initial analysis revealed unusual electromagnetic readings and temperature fluctuations within the isolation wing, particularly near the cells Jonathan had entered. EVP recordings captured faint murmurs, which some interpreted as calls for help or fragments of conversations. Investigators speculated that the intense psychological trauma of the prisoners who once occupied these cells could have left an imprint, a residual energy capable of interacting with the living. While skeptics argue that the environment itself, narrow, dark, and psychologically oppressive, could induce hallucinations or disorientation, the unexplained camera footage added a layer of intrigue and concern. Search parties combed the penitentiary, including every accessible cell, corridor, and basement area. Despite these exhaustive efforts, Jonathan's flashlight, camera, and personal belongings remained in the same location where he had vanished. No trace of him was found in the surrounding hallways, and even the maintenance areas were checked thoroughly. Authorities eventually concluded that the disappearance defied conventional explanation. The incident drew national attention, adding to the penitentiary's already infamous reputation for hauntings and unexplained phenomena. Since Jonathan's disappearance, Eastern State Penitentiary has seen an increase in reports from visitors describing sudden chills, shadows moving along walls, and whispers in the isolation wing. Some claim to glimpse a solitary figure in the distance, vanishing upon closer approach. Paranormal tours have since heightened safety protocols, ensuring no one ventures into the isolation cells alone. Guides recount the story of Jonathan as a cautionary tale, a reminder that while the penitentiary offers a window into the past, it may also harbor forces beyond human understanding. The case of the missing tourist remains unsolved. Some suggest that Jonathan became disoriented and lost within the labyrinthine corridors, while others believe that the isolation cells' intense history of suffering may have drawn him into a supernatural encounter. Whatever the explanation, the disappearance has cemented Eastern State Penitentiary's place as a site where history, tragedy, and the paranormal intersect. Visitors who step into the isolation wing today are met with more than crumbling walls and iron bars. They are confronted by the lingering echoes of human despair, and perhaps the unknown presence that claimed Jonathan Miller. Eastern State Penitentiary continues to intrigue historians, ghost hunters, and tourists alike. Its imposing architecture and dark history ensure that it is more than just a museum. It is a living reminder of the past's shadows. The story of the tourist lost in the isolation cells serves as a stark warning. Some spaces carry memories that refuse to fade, and within those memories, the boundary between living and the unseen may be more fragile than anyone realizes. The Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California, has long been renowned for its labyrinthine architecture, unexplained stairways, and tales of restless spirits. Built by Sarah Winchester, widow of the firearms magnate William Wirt Winchester, the sprawling mansion was continuously under construction for decades, creating a complex structure filled with secret passages, staircases that lead to nowhere, and doors opening into walls. visitors have reported feelings of unease, cold drafts, and strange sounds echoing through its endless corridors. Among these stories is one of a man who disappeared while exploring the mansion, an incident that remains unexplained and has only deepened the house's reputation as a place where the supernatural intersects with the bewildering architecture. In the summer of 2022, a man named Thomas Reynolds joined a small tour group at the Winchester Mystery House. Thomas, an avid photographer with a fascination for historic and haunted locations, was particularly drawn to the mansion's eccentric design and its storied past. Equipped with his camera and a notebook for documenting unusual occurrences, he set out with the group to explore the labyrinthine corridors that wind unpredictably throughout the home. The tour guides provided the usual cautions, noting that the house's endless stairways, doors to nowhere, and narrow passageways could be disorienting. But they also hinted at the mansion's history of paranormal activity, drawing Thomas even closer to the idea of capturing something truly extraordinary. As the group wandered through the east wing, Thomas lagged slightly behind, intrigued by a series of staircases that appeared to ascend into ceilings or end abruptly at blank walls. Witnesses later recalled seeing him pause to photograph a stairwell that seemed to vanish mid-air. Moments later, he was no longer visible, and calls from the tour group went unanswered. The guides and visitors retraced the corridors, searching in every room, stairway, and passage. Panic set in as the intricate layout of the house made it nearly impossible to track his movements. Security cameras in key areas later provided a disturbing glimpse into the disappearance. Footage revealed a fleeting shadow moving through the stairways, as though a figure was walking in Thomas's place, yet no human form was visible. The shadow flickered and twisted unnaturally, at times appearing elongated and distorted as it passed behind walls and through doorways. Investigators reviewed the video repeatedly, noting that it seemed impossible for someone to move in such a way without being caught on multiple cameras along the way. The footage offered no explanation for Thomas's absence, only deepening the sense that the mansion itself might have played a role in his vanishing. Visitors who were present at the time of the disappearance described a sudden and inexplicable chill in the hallways. Some felt an almost tangible presence, as though unseen eyes were observing their every movement. Whispers were reportedly heard, soft and unintelligible, echoing from the empty rooms and long corridors. A few visitors claimed to glimpse fleeting shadows that darted around corners or vanished when directly observed, adding a layer of psychological unease to the incident. The labyrinthine design of the mansion, with its staircases to nowhere and doors that open into walls, likely contributed to the confusion, but the suddenness of Thomas's disappearance left witnesses unsettled. Paranormal investigators were called in to examine the scene. Initial assessments revealed unusual electromagnetic readings and temperature fluctuations in several areas of the house, particularly near the stairways Thomas had been photographing. EVP recordings captured faint, disembodied whispers that seemed to echo along hallways, sometimes repeating phrases like "go away" or "you shouldn't be here." Some investigators speculated that the house could be acting as a conduit for residual energy, amplifying the intensity of the unusual phenomena. The mansion's construction, with hidden passageways and secret rooms, may create pockets where energy can accumulate, creating an environment that is both physically and psychologically disorienting. Despite extensive searches of the mansion, surrounding gardens, and nearby streets, Thomas Reynolds was never found. His camera and personal belongings remained in the last location where he had been seen, yet no other traces were uncovered. Authorities were forced to conclude that the disappearance defied conventional explanation. The incident quickly gained attention in both local media and paranormal circles, solidifying the Winchester Mystery House's reputation as a place where the ordinary rules of reality may not fully apply. Since Thomas's disappearance, numerous visitors and employees have reported heightened paranormal activity within the mansion. Some describe cold spots near stairways, shadows that appear and vanish inexplicably, and faint whispers echoing from empty rooms. Photographs taken by guests occasionally capture blurred figures or inexplicable light anomalies, reinforcing the notion that the house is a site of persistent, unseen activity. Paranormal tours now include stories of Thomas's disappearance as a cautionary tale, warning visitors to remain vigilant and aware of the mansion's disorienting architecture. The Winchester Mystery House continues to attract historians, tourists, and paranormal enthusiasts, drawn by its rich history, architectural oddities, and tales of haunting. The story of Thomas Reynolds serves as a chilling reminder of the mansion's mystique and the potential dangers lurking within its walls. For some, it is a testament to the enduring presence of the unknown, a place where past and present intersect in ways that remain mysterious and unnerving. Thomas Reynolds' disappearance remains unsolved. Was it the result of the mansion's confusing design, an unseen passage he inadvertently found, or something far more supernatural? Whatever the truth, the Winchester Mystery House continues to captivate and terrify, offering a haunting experience that blurs the line between reality and the unknown. Visitors step through its doors knowing that the house is not just a relic of the past, it is a living enigma, one capable of swallowing the curious and leaving behind only shadows. Bell Witch Cave, nestled in the woods of Adams, Tennessee, has long been the center of one of America's most infamous hauntings. Tales of the Bell Witch date back to the early 1800s, when the Bell family reportedly suffered from a series of unexplained attacks, poltergeist activity, and strange visions. Over the centuries, the legend has grown, cementing the cave as a place of both fascination and dread for paranormal enthusiasts. Visitors come seeking a brush with the supernatural, but the cave's eerie reputation is not without reason. Among the many stories of mysterious occurrences is the tale of a woman who vanished during a photography excursion, an incident that remains unexplained and continues to terrify those who visit the site. In the summer of 2021, a woman named Emily Carter joined a small tour group led by seasoned guides who knew the cave's history and the cautionary tales surrounding it. Emily, an amateur photographer, was particularly eager to capture the cave's natural formations and atmospheric shadows. The group began the walk along the narrow, winding path leading to the cave entrance, listening intently as guides recounted the history of the Bell Witch and reported sightings of spirits and unexplained phenomena. Emily, equipped with her camera, paused frequently to photograph the twisted roots and jagged rock walls, documenting the scenery with meticulous care. As the group reached the mouth of the cave, Emily lingered behind, fascinated by the way sunlight pierced through the cave entrance, casting long, ghostly shadows along the walls. Guides urged visitors not to stray too far, noting that the cave's interior could be treacherous and that past visitors had reported feeling disoriented within its confines. Emily's last confirmed photo showed the cavern's dark interior, faint streaks of light reflecting off wet rock surfaces. After that, she vanished. Tour members soon realized Emily was missing when the group proceeded further into the cave. Calls and shouts echoed against the stone walls, but no response came. The guides, familiar with the cave's twists and turns, led the group back to the entrance, but Emily was nowhere to be found. Panic set in as the group retraced the path, calling her name and shining flashlights into every shadowed corner. Outside the cave, Emily's camera and a few personal items, her water bottle and scarf, were discovered lying on the rocky ground near the entrance. Beyond these belongings, there was no sign of her. Local authorities were alerted, and search teams combed the surrounding forest for hours, expanding the search as night fell. They examined the area meticulously, including nearby creeks, thickets, and hidden ravines, but no trace of Emily was ever found. The suddenness of her disappearance, coupled with the cave's history, fueled speculation that supernatural forces could have been involved. Guides and locals noted that the area has long been associated with the Bell Witch legend, and stories of vanished visitors are not unprecedented. Paranormal investigators later examined the cave and surrounding terrain, recording unusual electromagnetic readings and unexplained temperature drops near the entrance where Emily's items were found. EVP devices captured faint, indecipherable whispers, and some claimed to hear what sounded like soft crying or calls for help from deep within the cave. while skeptics suggested Emily may have simply wandered into a hidden crevice or fallen. Others argue that the cave's long history of hauntings and malevolent activity makes such an explanation insufficient. The terrain inside the cave is known to be disorienting, with narrow passageways and irregular rock formations creating a natural labyrinth. Visitors often report feeling watched or guided by unseen forces, and Emily's disappearance added a chilling layer to these warnings. Witnesses from the tour described an intense feeling of dread at the moment Emily vanished. Some reported hearing sudden gusts of cold air in the cave, even on a still summer day, and glimpses of moving shadows near corners where no one was standing. The guides insist that the cave is historically cursed, claiming that the Bell Witch, as spiritor, whatever remains bound to the site, may still influence events within the cavern. Stories of sudden disappearances, eerie sounds, and inexplicable sensations continue to circulate among visitors, reinforcing the cave's reputation as one of the most haunted locations in the United States. Emily Carter's case has remained unsolved. Despite extensive searches, her whereabouts are unknown, leaving her disappearance as a modern chapter in the Bell Witch legend. The cave remains a destination for thrill-seekers, paranormal investigators, and tourists drawn by the promise of experiencing something beyond the ordinary. Those who venture into the cave are now cautioned not to wander alone, to stay close to guides, and to respect the long-held warnings about the area's unexplained forces. Emily's story serves as both a haunting reminder and a warning of the cave's power and its ability to unsettle, disorient, or even claim those who enter unprepared. The Bell Witch Cave continues to captivate and terrify, a living relic of one of America's most enduring supernatural tales. Emily's disappearance is a stark testament to the cave's reputation, suggesting that some places harbor energies or entities beyond human understanding. Whether the cave's history, its labyrinthine formations, or something more otherworldly was responsible, the event has become a cautionary tale repeated by guides and locals alike. Visitors remain fascinated, yet uneasy, aware that the shadows within Bell Witch Cave may conceal secrets, or perhaps take those who venture too far into their dark embrace. To this day, Emily Carter has never been seen again. The abandoned camera and scattered belongings remain on display at the cave entrance, a silent testament to the enduring mystery and the cave's formidable legacy. Bell Witch Cave remains both a site of exploration and a place of trepidation, its legend growing with every story of lost visitors, unexplained whispers, and shadows that refuse to yield their secrets. The Ridges, an abandoned asylum in Athens, Ohio, has long been a magnet for thrill-seekers, urban explorers, and paranormal investigators. Once a thriving mental health facility, the asylum's sprawling brick halls and crumbling wings now stand as a testament to decades of history, tragedy, and lingering energy. Over the years, countless stories have emerged of unexplained sounds, shadowy figures, and sudden chills felt by those daring enough to walk its desolate corridors. Among these tales is the mysterious disappearance of a teenager who vanished while exploring the West Wing, an incident that has only deepened the asylum's reputation as one of Ohio's most haunted locations. In the spring of 2022, 17-year-old Jason Miller joined a small group of friends eager to explore the abandoned facility. The group had prepared flashlights, cameras, and recording equipment, determined to capture evidence of paranormal activity. Jason, fascinated by the history of the Ridges and its notorious reputation, was particularly eager to explore the West Wing, a section of the asylum long off limits to the public and known for its intricate network of hallways and decaying patient rooms. As the group moved through the main entrance, the atmosphere was heavy with decay and silence. Broken windows allowed streaks of sunlight to pierce through dusty air, illuminating peeling paint and rusted metal fixtures. The teenagers joked nervously, but the air inside the asylum quickly shifted, carrying a sense of unease that grew with every step. Some members of the group reported hearing faint whispers echoing down distant corridors, but attributed them to the acoustics of the old building. Jason, however, seemed particularly attuned to these sounds, pausing frequently to listen or record audio on his phone. Upon reaching the West Wing, the group noticed a strange chill, colder than the surrounding halls. Doors that appeared solid were slightly ajar, and the flickering of their flashlight beams cast eerie shadows along the walls. Jason, curious and adventurous, moved ahead of the others, intent on documenting the more secluded rooms. His friends called out for him to stay close, but he insisted he could handle the exploration alone for a few minutes, promising to return shortly. Moments later, the group noticed that Jason had not returned. Calls echoed through the corridor with no response. One friend, increasingly concerned, decided to follow the faint trail of belongings Jason had inadvertently dropped along the floor. His backpack, water bottle, and notebook lay scattered near the entrance to a long, dark hallway. The group frantically searched the immediate area, calling his name, but Jason was nowhere to be found. Their shouts bounced off the walls, amplifying the sense of isolation and dread. Emergency services were alerted, and search teams combed the building and surrounding grounds. Despite thorough searches of the West Wing, basement, and courtyard, no trace of Jason was discovered. Security footage from the facility showed a vague shadow moving along the hallway where he had been exploring, but no clear image of him was ever captured. The mysterious absence left the building shrouded in fear and speculation. Paranormal investigators who visited the ridges after the disappearance noted several unusual phenomena in the West Wing. Cold spots appeared in precise locations, sometimes lingering for several minutes. Electronic voice phenomena (EVP) recordings captured faint whispers repeating Jason's name, along with indistinct phrases that seemed to beckon visitors further into the wing. Shadowy figures were caught on video, moving across empty rooms where no one stood, adding to the belief that the building's residual energy is particularly strong in that area. Some investigators theorized that the West Wing may serve as a focal point for restless spirits, tied to the asylum's long history of suffering and death. The disappearance of Jason Miller has become a modern legend in the lore of the ridges. Locals and guides warned visitors to avoid the West Wing entirely, recounting stories of other unexplained incidents. Fleeting glimpses of children in tattered clothing, sudden drops in temperature, and the sensation of being watched while walking through hallways. Those who explore the asylum often report an overwhelming feeling of unease, and many claim that the building seems to shift subtly, leading them away from certain rooms or corridors. Witnesses from Jason's group described feeling a presence that was both oppressive and intelligent, as if something unseen was observing their every move. The cold, the whispers, and the sudden disappearance all reinforced the idea that the Ridges is more than just an abandoned building. It is a place where lingering energy from the past interacts with the living in unpredictable and sometimes dangerous ways. Psychologists, paranormal experts, and local historians continue to debate whether these occurrences are caused by human perception, environmental factors, or truly supernatural forces. Regardless of the explanation, the story of Jason S.'s disappearance serves as a warning for those who enter the asylum unprepared or unaware of its history. To this day, Jason Miller has not been found. His abandoned belongings remain in the West Wing as silent witnesses to the mysterious events that transpired that night. Tours of the Ridges now include cautionary tales of his disappearance, warning visitors to respect the building and the unknown forces said to reside within its walls. Paranormal researchers continue to monitor the asylum, recording EVPs, temperatures, and unexplained movements in the hopes of uncovering more information about the West Wing's strange energy. The Ridges remains a symbol of Ohio's haunted history, a site where the line between the living and the spectral seems particularly thin. Jason's disappearance is one of the most chilling examples of the asylum's eerie reputation, reminding visitors and paranormal enthusiasts alike that the spirits of the past may still linger, and that some hallways, some rooms, are better left unexplored. The West Wing of the Ridges continues to call to thrill seekers and investigators, but Jason Miller's story is a stark reminder that curiosity in the face of the unknown can come at a terrifying cost. Even now, the cold spots remain, the whispers continue, and visitors who pass through the West Wing often report an almost imperceptible presence. as if Jason's spirit or something else still lingers, quietly watching from the shadows of the ridges. The Myrtles Plantation, nestled along the Mississippi River in Louisiana, is often called one of the most haunted locations in the United States. Built in the late 18th century, the mansion has long been associated with tragedy, death, and unexplained phenomena. Ghost stories have been passed down through generations, from spectral figures appearing in hallways to whispers echoing through empty rooms. Among these unsettling tales is the mysterious disappearance of a family member during a nighttime visit, an incident that has only deepened the plantation's eerie reputation. In the summer of 2021, the Johnson family traveled to the Myrtles Plantation to explore its history and experience the famed haunted tours. The family had always been fascinated by paranormal activity, and the plantation's reputation drew them to its sprawling grounds. After a day of touring the property, the family decided to explore a portion of the plantation grounds independently. Guided by flashlights and a mixture of curiosity and excitement, they were particularly intrigued by the stories of past disappearances and ghost sightings, and their cameras and phones were ready to capture any unusual occurrences. As night fell, the family approached the main house, its exterior bathed in the pale glow of the moon. The air was thick with humidity, carrying the scent of the surrounding bayous. The family members joked nervously, trying to maintain a sense of levity, but there was a palpable tension that hung over the property. According to the family, one of their adult relatives, Mark, expressed a desire to take a closer look at the main house. He was drawn toward the entrance, apparently fascinated by the architecture and the historical aura of the mansion. Despite the group's warnings to stay close, Mark insisted that he would only be gone for a few minutes. He entered the house while the rest of the family remained outside, preparing to photograph the exterior and the sprawling gardens. They called out to him, but the only response was the sound of the creaking floorboards and the whisper of the wind through the broken shutters. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, and concern began to grow. When the family finally ventured inside, they discovered that Mark had vanished completely. The main house was silent, the rooms dimly illuminated by moonlight streaming through the tall windows. The family searched each hallway, checking closets and rooms, calling his name repeatedly. The air inside was heavy and oppressive, and the faintest whisper seemed to follow them from room to room. Despite their thorough search and multiple attempts to retrace Mark's steps, there was no sign of him. His flashlight was found leaning against a wall, and his phone lay on a table, but he was nowhere in sight. Panic set in as they realized that something unexplained had occurred. Emergency services were contacted immediately, and law enforcement combed the plantation grounds, checking every accessible area. Canine units were deployed, but they too were unable to locate any trace of Mark. The search extended into the surrounding bayous and fields, yet nothing was found. The mysterious disappearance left the family traumatized and the local community unsettled, adding to the long list of unexplained incidents linked to the plantation. Paranormal investigators, who later examined the site, reported unusual phenomena, particularly in the main house. Cold spots were detected in precise locations. In electronic voice phenomena, EVPs captured faint whispers that sounded like someone calling for help. Cameras set up inside the house recorded shadowy figures moving through hallways and glimpses of translucent shapes, appearing and disappearing in the blink of an eye. Investigators noted that the area where Mark was last seen seemed to be a focal point for these manifestations, suggesting that residual energy or spirits could be influencing events inside the plantation. The Myrtles Plantation has a long history of unexplained vanishings, dating back to its earliest days. Tales tell of slaves, owners, and guests disappearing under mysterious circumstances, with no explanation ever provided. Some historians suggest that the plantation's tragic past, which includes illness, murder, and misfortune, has left behind a lingering energy capable of interacting with the living in unpredictable ways. Paranormal enthusiasts often describe the mansion as a place where time and space can feel distorted, hallways seeming to extend or shift, and rooms appearing differently from one moment to the next. Witnesses who tours the Myrtles often report an overwhelming sense of unease. Sudden temperature drops, and the feeling of being watched. Some have even claimed to see figures standing silently in corners, or shadows moving independently of any light source. The story of Mark's disappearance has become a cautionary tale among visitors, illustrating that the plantation is not just haunted by ghosts of the past, but that those spirits may actively interact with the living in ways that are sometimes dangerous. Local guides now include Mark's disappearance in their retellings, warning visitors to exercise caution when exploring the house, particularly at night. They recount the experience of his family, emphasizing the palpable dread and inexplicable events that occurred during that fateful evening. Paranormal experts continue to monitor the mansion with cameras, audio recorders, and thermal devices, attempting to capture evidence of the unseen forces that many believe reside within its walls. To this day, Mark has not been found. The Myrtles plantation remains as imposing and enigmatic as ever, its reputation as a haunted landmark cemented by stories like his disappearance. Visitors who wander its hallways often report feeling a presence that is both intelligent and malevolent, a lingering reminder that the past at the Myrtles is never truly gone. The plantation continues to attract those curious about the supernatural, but Mark's story serves as a chilling reminder that some doors once opened may lead to the unknown and that the spirits of the Myrtles plantation may never truly let go. Even now, when the wind moves through the broken shutters and the moonlight casts long shadows across the main hall, those who enter the Myrtles plantation speak of fleeting figures, cold drafts, and whispers that seem to call from nowhere. The story of the family member who vanished in the night has become part of the mansion's living legend, a haunting testament to the mysteries that still reside within Louisiana's most infamous haunted house. And so, dear viewers, our journey through the vanished souls of America comes to an end. 25 chilling stories of people who explored the unknown, only to vanish without a trace. These tales remind us that some doors should remain closed, some paths untraveled, and some places left undisturbed. If you ever choose to explore the haunted and the forgotten, do so with respect, caution, and the knowledge that some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Thank you for walking this haunted path with me. Until next time, keep your senses alert, your courage steady, and remember, some curiosities are deadly, and some doors once opened can never truly be closed.